Which gym was that at, by the way?
That was my garage
Oh,
in
wow.
Portland.
Okay.
Yeah, I went up to his place in Portland. Chris and I actually we were tinkering around with some projects. We were going to make something called a super lift,
Yep.
which is going to be like a monolift that you can do other stuff off of. Because a monolift, unfortunately, it's like one giant
It's
thing
for
that you
squatting.
can,
Yeah.
you can only squat off of. And Chris had a lot of great concepts and ideas, and we thought we could kind of come together on something, and we did. We messed around with it for a little while,
And then I disappeared.
yeah, and you were working a lot.
Yeah, I was running an aerospace company at the time and realized that it was about to go under, and we were going to work on this project. I'm like, Mark, I can't do this, or 150 people are going to lose their jobs. Like, I got to buckle down and focus.
Right.
So got dropped there, but I got 3 of them though still in my facility that were the prototypes.
Yeah, and they work great. You've been tinkering around with stuff for a long time. I mean, when I went to your garage gym, I mean, first of all, it was like a used car lot a little bit. I remember seeing a lot of used car like parts, and I seen a lot of
Not much has changed.
Yeah, a lot of cars and a lot of like machines and stuff. And I'm pretty unfamiliar with a lot of it, so it's a lot of stuff I've never seen before. But then even in your gym, you had a lot of innovative stuff. You had the bench where you had just
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I still have that.
Yeah, you had stuff like set up in just, whatever weird way you could figure out at the time.
You just press a button and the bench goes up and down. Doesn't matter. You can put 2,000 pounds on the bar. It doesn't matter. It'll just go up, down. So instead of like lifting the end and putting pins, like, it still runs today. So
that's the Chris Duffin story, is like he never adjusts or makes anything like just a little bit better. You go above and beyond and make it some crazy, weird contraption, right? Kind of a mad scientist. When did all that start? Like, were you always interested? Were you doing that kind of stuff as a kid or something?
I was doing that, as a kid. So very early, I remember I'd take apart like my little electronic toys and build other things out of them. So like, I don't know. Occasionally, I'd like burn myself with wires that were hot or whatever. But
and did you go to school for that?
Well, yeah, yes, I did. I want engineering, so got one engineering degree, and then I was 9 credits short of my second engineering degree.
Wow.
So when I decided I wasn't gonna sit at a computer all day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How about
go ahead.
How about that aerospace thing you mentioned? The aerospace company, like you had 150 employees?
Yeah. So I spent about 20 years, so 18 years in the industrial sector. I developed on the leadership side of things, and so I ended up running manufacturing for some automotive manufacturing companies, high tech, aerospace. That one was my biggest project. I came in to a failing aerospace company and turned it around. They were failing for quality delivery, and they were losing money every year. And in 4 years' time, I got it profitable and at world-class level for Boeing. We're the #1 supplier in the world for quality and delivery. And then prepped it for sale, got it turned around and sold, and then went on to another company from there.
What the fuck is?
So I was kind of.
What's aerospace?
We made parts on planes. So the ones we made there, we made a lot for mostly Boeing, although we did some for Bombardier and a few other programs, some military work. But primarily it was a lot of 737 parts. So components that went on what's called the main landing gear. So there's a big beam that comes down, and we were responsible for making a lot of the components on that. And then
Probably a lot of regulations, I would imagine, right?
a few.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a few.
A lot
There's
of lives are-
a
lives are
lot
at
of
stake.
paperwork. More paperwork goes with every single part
I would
than
imagine.
than you could believe. So the joke is that a Boeing plane couldn't take off if you actually stuffed all the paperwork inside that comes along with it. So, and then I was on the critical path for the launch of the 787 Dreamliner. So all the if you ever watch one, there's a bunch of components on the jet, the fuselage, that move in and out. Made all those components that basically mount to that composite hull and hold both the engine in place as well as open the doors and things on there for
Was
So
that
that was
was that maybe a little bit of like a dream job? Because it sounded like you could kind of make and do anything.
well, everything's highly engineered, so you can't just do whatever you want.
Okay.
I what I really enjoyed about the work that I did was the working with people. So being able to, like I said, when I went into the aerospace company, the entire culture had to change. So there was a lot of cultural change, like building people. They were used to running around with their hair on fire, always losing the battles, like, and so it's really, inspiring people and getting them connected with a vision and helping them understand how they fit into that, and then being able to really drive change through people. And so that's what I loved. Basically the coaching,
Right.
right? And that's why I eventually ended up leaving the career, because I wanted to do more of that. I was doing that at a high level, but the things that I was making and doing and how they were impacting the world didn't fit my personal vision. So I wanted to go out, and this was actually happened basically while I was down here. It might have been last time or the time before. I can't remember. So, because
Probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris was down here, and I think at the time you were already a world record holder, or maybe you broke the world record in a squat. And
Yep.
In a 220.
Yeah, I had the all-time world record at the time.
He used to weigh 220 pounds. That's a while.
According to the internet, I'm 220 forever.
A couple sandwiches
I'm like,
ago, maybe.
I think that's why everybody thinks I'm like 5'4", because they're like, he's 220. Like,
That's awesome. And while you were down here, I remember you were. I think you already knew the answer.
yeah, I did. Yeah,
you already
it
knew
was,
the answer. You're just kind of like, just needed somebody to kind of like nudge you and say, "Hey, man, fuck that job, go do something else." But I remember it actually really vividly, and I remember where we were. We were in Davis, and I remember we were driving down the street, and you had a call, and you just kind of got talked to in a way where I was like, when you hung up, I was like, man, I don't know, like that doesn't work for me. Like I would never be able to have a job like that. I'd never be able to have a job like you had, where, you have kind of higher ups breathing down your neck like that. And I just said, you've set world records. You've done all these crazy things. You can go off and do anything. And then plus you're already in, I mean, it's not like you had a job at Burger King.
that was a tough call. I was paid. That was one of the big problems. I've got a family, and I've got a lifestyle that I provided for that family, and I was rewarded pretty well for what I did. I mean, I was sought out for coming in and basically doing turnarounds for companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I never went and applied for jobs. I was recruited, and that was kind of the big step, right? Is like walking away from that security, that comfort, and
Right.
knowing my background as you do, you understand that that's a pretty important thing for me. Like I had complete opposite of security growing up, and I didn't want to have that and so that was, for me, that was the big holdup, right? And but at the same time, I wasn't doing with my life what I knew I could. Like I knew the way that I could impact the world the best,
Right.
and I knew what it was. And I remember distinctly sitting on that in that car ride with you, and taking the call, which was on speaker because I can't bring a damn phone to my face, and getting berated by the CEO of the company, and it's just like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this.
Right.
I'm kind of done with this.
Yeah, and it's just like, I can't really think of. I mean, people in here have been like, we've had to talk to people for certain reasons. We've had to take like disciplinary actions on people, but like I would never imagine ever talking to anybody like that. You know what I mean? Like I can't see a reason for it.
Oh,
So
it's not the way I operate.
if
I'll tell you that.
if somebody's listening and they work at a job like that, that's not normal. Like that's not the way a business should be run. It doesn't make any sense. Now, to get into it a little bit here and there over a project or something, because everyone's passionate about it and excited about it, that's kind of one thing. But to like kind of talk down to somebody, I just don't think there's a place for it. And I don't think it works. It doesn't work. That's the main problem. It doesn't help.
Well, here's the crazy thing. So, like over the course of my career, I've had this happen multiple times, where you end up in those situations where you end up having to part ways with somebody, do disciplinary action. And I have had many times, twice, that 2 people that I've let go have come back at another employer and begged me to hire them again. Because they're like, hey, you were straight up, you were honest, and what you told me, like, I needed to hear, and it changed my life. And you were right, and I want to prove it to you, right? And same thing, I've had other people come back and just thank me, like, repeatedly, because you don't have to handle it without class. Like, you can still, this person's a human, and you're not, like, trying to make them feel bad or less of themselves. It's like, here's what you need to accomplish, and you know, you've chosen not to do that, and this is where we're at. But there's nothing personal about this. I want you to be successful. Okay, we're doing this, but I still want you to be successful. You know, and if you're not going to do it here, I'm hoping that you can do it somewhere else. And there's nothing like negative about that. It's like, here's the behaviors, here's the actions, here's what needs to change. And if they can't get there, you know, they're making that choice themselves. But it doesn't mean it doesn't, like you said, when you talk to somebody on a personal level and say, you suck, like, why would you say such a, you know, like, because you don't have to handle it that way. Even if you're unhappy, you know, when would you not want somebody to better themselves and improve their situation? So
you try to make it black and white, and you say, hey, remember, like, this is the job we hired you for. I'm not sure what's happening, and maybe you don't have all the resources or tools to get the job done. Is there something I can do on my behalf to assist you further? Or can we buy a new computer for you? Or is there something that we can do to step in to assist what you're doing? Do you need to learn more programs? Do you need to go to a seminar? You know, what is it is there anything that we can do? Because it's not really looking good. It's not heading in the right direction. How do we get it heading in the right direction? And it's, you know, the person might be insulted because they might be, very attached to what they're doing. They might think everything's okay.
So, you know, one thing I got to commend you on, Mark. Like, I walked in this morning before you were here, and Smokey's showing me around and introducing me to people, and I just love the consistency in, like, the faces that I see here, and that speaks well. So, I just
thank you. Appreciate
you know, it's on that same topic, and
it's because I scream at Smokey every day, tell him what a piece of shit he is.
But, you know, like, I've never held a job for more than 5 years, and I've had people work for me for 20 years. Like, that, you know, people should be, like, at my company, Kabuki, you know, some of the people used to work for me in automotive or some of those other companies in, you know, engineering roles or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, hey, I need your help, call them up. And they're like, yeah. Hell yeah. You always treated me with respect. You know, I'm down. I want to come be part of what you're doing. And, you know, that speaks well. You know, that makes you feel good that you're treating people in the way that, that they want to continue, you know, working with you in that manner.
We hear
when there's a lot of different places they can go.
Yeah.
The economy's going good. Unemployment's low. Like, you know, people have a lot of choices.
Go Trump. Oh, sorry. Didn't know we were still on air. You know, we hear a lot of people say, like, you know, kind of F your job and, like, move on and go do your own thing. And people want to get all excited about it and stuff. But, like, how do you really actually do it when you're making, you know, 6 figures and you're doing really well and you don't know, like, you know, where else to go? How were you able to do it?
Well, the thing is, I'd actually started working on building the platform to do that many years before I ever made the move. We were just reflecting on this picture of me looking young there back in 2008, and we were working on a project together. But, you know, I'd started my YouTube channel a couple years before that, started producing free educational, you know, content whenever I could. I was busy, but I'd be in the gym, and I'd be like, hey, I'm going to talk to everybody about a coaching concept at the gym.
And
let's record this and throw it up. And this is before mobile phones were like it was really easy to do that sort of stuff.
And some of that you had momentum with without even ever knowing that it was going to become anything.
Exactly.
Really, right?
Did podcasts, things like that, started building a brand, right? And so when the switch made, I had my first product designed, and I just reached out to my audience and said, hey, here's it, and this is the concept, this is where it's going to go. Ah, yes. Look at those charming. Oh my God, we've changed roles. So I'm the fat one now, and you're the skinny one.
Maybe next time you come back, we'll switch again.
Dude, your cheeks, man. Like, that's wild.
I am pushing my belly out on the prego, but that is hilarious.
I
Just to
don't know.
clear.
Was that product you were talking about? Which one was
was
it?
the shoulder rock.
Shoulder rock.
See, I
So
look at-
I put the shoulder rock. I made 10 prototypes, and I went and I worked with like Eric Spoto and a few other people, and Stan Efforting, and got a little bit of momentum and hype going about it, and then did basically my own Kickstarter, because I don't think Kickstarter was around then. Maybe it was. I wasn't familiar with it, and put it for sale, listing what the lead time was going to be. Got enough orders to launch that.
What do you mean you put it on sale? Was it like on the internet, like a Kickstarter?
Not a Kickstarter. It was just I created my own website
Oh, okay.
and put it up for sale with
cool.
what the lead time was, that it was development and people order them. Was able to fund the startup of that and got that going. Started selling those. Launched the whiskey and deadlift shirt, and a couple months later, I was able to walk away from my job.
Let's back up just a little bit. How did you, when you took money, were people like investing in the business, or was it just to support you, or
No, it was to buy. So I listed it's going to be 12 weeks to make this, because I knew that
Right.
would take me like 8 or 10, and so they basically ordered a product.
I see. It's like you did mainly like a pre-sale.
Yeah,
Right.
pre-sale.
Gotcha.
So we don't do that anymore, but that did the same thing.
That's
with
a little scary too, right? Like you have people's money, and then
you got to deliver.
Yeah.
So did the same thing with the Duffalo bar.
You get one shot at that.
That March, or that. So I did that at the beginning of there with the shoulder rock, and then in May or June, launched the Duffalo bar with a pre-sale as well. Had all the development done on it, and
What
that
about
was
machinery and stuff like that? How'd you work that? Did you already have some of these pieces, or
I already had some of the base machinery. The Duffalo bar, I had the machining outsourced, and did the assembly in-house. And then since that, as things progressed that year, we continued to buy more equipment and continue to bring that in-house. Now we've got a full manufacturing facility, and we manufacture everything in-house.
I went to the New York Jets, and there's the Duffalo bar, and there's your new trap bar deadlift.
That thing's great.
I know a lot of other teams have a lot of your products and stuff
Yeah.
too. That's awesome.
Well,
That is so cool.
the Yankees there in New York, they got all our stuff.
What is it, a baseball team?
I think so.
Andrew, see if you can pull up a picture of some shots of Chris's trucks that he has.
Got it.
They're separate Instagram, Duffin War Rig.
Oh, there we
Duffin
go.
War Rig.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah, thing's a monster.
the MLB championships weren't too long ago, and 9 of the 10 teams competing are all Kabuki customers. So
I remember Louis Simmons back in the day. He said, "If you want to lose, don't get a reverse hyper. If you want to win, buy a reverse hyper."
Pretty straightforward. And I was gonna say, so like, whether or not Kickstarter was even available back then, it wasn't as accepted as it is today. Like anybody can start a Kickstarter, and people they won't just throw money, but like it's a normal thing now. Back then, I'd imagine it was not. So like, was there
no, and I wanted to have my name behind it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm putting this out there. I'm guaranteeing that this is going to get done.
So
You
was
know.
there like a huge resistance early on, or just you had trust already built because of
That's what I said.
everything?
I had trust built because I'd been out there for a while, demonstrating who I was, producing So for years, I spent building a platform, writing for a number of different online
Blogs and
Breaking
stuff.
Muscle, Elite FTS. So I was doing a lot of work for years, building that position. So I get people message me a lot. They're like, "Hey, I just got out of school. I want to know how I get into online coaching. How do I start?" And I'm like, "You need to go get a job at 24 Hour Fitness." And they're like, "What? No. I'm like, you got to cut your teeth somewhere and learn the basics. So
But I want to retire by the time I'm 30.
I want to start. I want to start. Writing and coaching and doing this stuff online. I'm like, you realize I've been training for 15 years, maybe 20 years before I ever published my first article, where I felt confident enough that I've got something of value to add. And then I did that for another 10 years. maybe not quite 10 years. Yeah, 7 years. So let's say 15 years and then like 7 years. 7 years of doing that before even saying, hey, I'm ready now to go launch my own business. And so that's, you got to take your time like learning as well. You can't just go, hey, I want to be a motivational speaker. Well, you got to have some experiences to speak from, you know?
Yeah.
I know you just got out of college or high school or something, but like, and that's a grand ambition, but you need to have some content, some, you know, you've got to have some material, some experiences in your life. And same thing goes with anything. You've got to cut your teeth, and there's nothing wrong with working for somebody if you want to be an entrepreneur. You know what they're doing when you're working for them? If you find the right job, you're getting paid to learn. You're getting paid for your degree in life, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I did the work that I did for as long as I did. I didn't know that I would be going into this industry, but I knew that I wanted to launch my own company down the road. And I was specifically choosing roles and advancing my career because, man, you know, there's so much to learn that I don't want to do it on my dime. Like, is that a bad thing to say? I don't think it is.
Right.
Like,
No.
you know, and I do the same thing for my employees. I try to advance them and get as much for them. And if they end up going and doing their own thing, that's great for them. I'll support them in doing that. But, you know, I also don't want to not develop, you know, who we've got. That's just ensuring your own loss.
And then even in the confines of any business, if a business is run properly, in most cases, everyone should be able to be like a mini entrepreneur within the business itself.
Absolutely. I think that's why I said choosing the right job, because not everybody works in that fashion. And that's something I always try to do, because people always contacted me about like, hey, can you do something for this within my company? I'm like, hey, I need you to put you in charge of this. They're like, oh no, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, well, I don't head up marketing. I don't make the decisions. Like, you need to talk to our marketing people. You need to talk to our sales people. You need to talk to operations. And people always want to go through me. And I'm like, I actually don't make the decisions in those areas, but you're the owner. I don't make the decisions in those areas, like, because that takes all the fun out of it for them. Like, if you've got a job and all you're doing is executing exactly what you're told every day,
Yeah.
there's no creativity. There's no, I mean, that's not what you want. So you need
we
to
don't
find
have
the
much
right.
of a job description here when people come. Like, people will ask for one. They're like, "Can I get like?" We're like, we don't really do that.
Yeah. Well, and I found too
try.
is like some people need that, and unfortunately that doesn't work for us either. So it's like you probably need to find somewhere else, because that's not the type of environment. And if that's what you need, like, it's going to end up being painful for both of us. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point. Is like everybody, you know, every leader in our business is basically managing their own business, making those decisions, and they'll run it by me or run it by our team for getting input and making sure we're all aligned. And that's why we have like a very specific, like, defined who we are as a company and what we're trying to accomplish. So to help that process, but it's me providing input, not telling people what to do.
I think something that separates you out from a lot of people is, I mean, you got a lot of different facets to your game. You know, you're a coach and you're able to instruct, and then you're also making these badass products. One thing that I've always liked about you is your ability to communicate. When you talk about, you know, rooting your feet into the ground, and when you talk about these certain things, how were you able to pick up a lot of that information? Because once you started kind of going down the path of kind of like body mechanics and how the body works and all that stuff, I really felt that was a real separation between you and a lot of other strength coaches.
Yeah, and that it's interesting because we consider like Kabuki an education company first as well, and our products are an output of what we believe as far as human loading and movement, right? So we don't just like make things because we can make something and sell it. It's, does it fit? Is it adding value in a way that isn't there before? But that all came from basically what you're talking about there. And how that happened is I had a string of injuries like in the early 2000s, a little over 10 years ago. And I kept going to doctors, and they're like, oh, we can fix that shoulder. We can fix that back. And they're just focused. I'm like, I've been lifting for 20 years and I've never had an injury. And now I've got these things popping up all over my body. And I'm like, I got to dive deeper. This is what I do. I dive deeper.
Yeah.
So I started going through a bunch of docs and just like not getting, the answers. They all had answers, but that wasn't really what I was looking for. I was looking for, I don't know how to define it. But anyway, I met someone and he had a lot of questions. And I'm like, oh, let's spend a little more time. And we started diving deeper. And then it was from a school of around developmental kinesiology. So basically, movement of the body. And he started introducing me to a lot of other people. And so I started attending these lectures. A lot of them were clinical based. Mm-hmm. So it was continuing ed for chiros and physical therapists, things of that nature. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to jump in. And I started participating, and then I'd end up talking to whoever the instructor was. And they're like, interesting. I like your thought process. And next time they'd be teaching, they'd ask me to come and like lecture with them for part of it. And then it just kept going. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh, my good friends, the people I, text and message about, stuff are like the leaders in the world on, human movement.
Yeah, when you
like,
shoot the shit with like Donnie Thompson and me and other powerlifters and stuff, right? And Starrett and stuff like that, right?
Starrett, Stu McGill, Craig Liebenson, who brought DNS, which is a big foundational thing for us for dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, to the U.S., a bunch of other, Dr. Charlie Weingroff out of New York, like just a whole lot of like very key people in the industry that are thought leaders around it. And what I brought to the table in those discussions is I lift really heavy things. And we find out when and where it actually breaks, because a lot of the research and stuff was more based around dealing with sedentary or older populations. And so I said, well, let's take some thought. So I spent a few years like kind of digesting all this. And then I started finally getting a grasp of like, how does this actually play a role in pure strength training? How do we teach this effectively and get the output of this? And then it started having a phenomenal impact on my strength, my power output. People are like, how did you put 100 pounds on your squat this year? How did you get that much stronger? I'm like, I didn't get stronger. I was actually there the whole time. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I got like 15 pounds stronger or 20 pounds stronger, but I didn't get 100. But they're like, but your max went from, 720 to 820. You're 100 pounds stronger. I'm like, no, I'm just able to use all the strength that I had.
Also maybe stayed healthier, right?
Stayed healthier too. Yep. And so that's where a lot of that started coming from. And then I saw big gaps. Like this is, in the clinical area, this is taught because, low back pain is the number one healthcare cost in America. Mm. Wow. Above cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all these things. Nice video there.
Yeah. What's done for back pain?
What's that?
What's done for back pain, right? Like when you go to the doctor, they just give you meds usually.
Meds and say take time off, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the docs I work with have people deadlifting with a kettlebell before they leave, and because they're teaching these principles, and now we can do the same thing, and it's going to elicit one. It's going to improve your longevity. You're healthier. You're going to lift better. But you can also increase your power output, like immediately if we start shutting off the systems that are basically down-regulating us. So your power output will go up. So it's just, I use an analogy quite a bit because I like cars, around the traction control on a vehicle. Mm-hmm. So vehicles that have them, a lot of people think that when you have the traction control on, it's taking the power from the wheel that's slipping and sends it to the ones that are gripping. Which is not the case. You're going around a corner on some ice or snow or water or whatever. Tire goes loose, and the car senses it. And what it does is it detunes the engine and detunes the shift patterns on the transmission. It reduces the power output. And when it does that, your traction improves, and you're able to not slide off the road and die a fiery death. It's trying to protect you from injury. So the same thing happens when we're training. If we're in poor positions, we don't have the right muscles that are supposed to be stabilizing us, firing and working the way that you are, your traction control's on. It's trying to save you. And same thing, like, you know, people are constantly trying to, got to do our soft tissue work as a fix. I sell soft tissue equipment. I honestly don't want people to ever have to use it or buy it. There's going to be times where you need to, but if everything is working the way that it is, why are those muscles getting tight? Hips don't get tight from squatting. They get tight from squatting like shit.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're not moving well, the body's going to tighten the muscles around that joint to try to preserve it and reduce the power output and be able to, yes.
Yeah, I mean, good movement's
So-
going to be good for you. But
Exactly.
poor movement's not going to be so great.
So a lot of the issues that people are chasing is because they're not moving well to begin with in their lifts. Okay. If you're lacking ankle mobility, okay, well, that's a common one in powerlifting. Like, I don't have the ankle mobility to hit depth, so I've got to wear my squat shoes. You know, if squat shoes help you lift more, no problem, whatever, you go ahead and use them. But if you're using them because you got lack of ankle mobility, it means that you're not using the foot correctly. The foot is weak. And so what's the body going to do if you've got a weak base? It's going to tighten the muscles and limit the mobility around the ankle. It's a sign and signal for you that you're doing something wrong and you actually need to develop an area. And the traction control, you're inhibited there. You might be inhibited throughout the body depending on, and most people are. So you start putting this stuff to play and all of a sudden, and I make sure I go on this rant too, because I talk to, you know, there's a whole audience that are 30, 40, 50 plus, and they're like, oh yeah, pain-free, I want that. You try telling the 22-year-old that's on his way up, you go, it's gonna help you. They're like, whatever. I'm just gonna go to the gym and lift some weights.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, it's gonna help you lift more. What do you have to say again? So I have to make sure I hit that side of it too. So because that's and so fundamentally that's where it came from, is just really developing a network where I'm dealing with the best of the best in that regards and learning with them and from them. And so that's a unique position that I'm in and our company is in, because we play on both ends of those spectrums where a lot of people don't.
You know, I've had a membership with Kabuki MS for like years now. And first off, if anyone hasn't gotten it, the resources there are really awesome. But for you, when you were learning about all this stuff and fixing yourself as a lifter, if you can remember, what were some of, like, I guess, the main things that caused the biggest change and adjustment for you as you fixed yourself?
Absolutely. So, and this goes straight to our coaching methodology, our assessment, and how we look at things. We want to look at things because a lot of people will jump, I love certain things, and they just jump right to it. We want to look at what has the largest global impact first. So we organize our priorities based on global impact. So spinal position, breathing, and bracing are going to have the biggest global impact. Okay. So I could, you know, if I'm extended and try to reach overhead, my shoulder mechanics are going to be shit. Okay. But if I change my position, all of a sudden my shoulder mechanics change. Okay. Same thing with the hip, the foot, like where the bar's loaded, where the balance is. Like, this has the biggest impact through the entire body. So it doesn't make sense to chase nuance of what's happening here and here if I've got an issue here. Okay. So we want to make sure that we've got those areas. So that's why we hit on that so much first, is because, one, you can always be better. So there's always opportunity, but it has the biggest entire global impact on the body.
Yeah.
So next we want to go to the second one behind that, which is the foot and the ankle complex I was just talking about. Especially since we're based off of there, basically in powerlifting, in every movement, even the bench press, a little less so, but in almost nearly any sport, you know, take out swimming or other stuff, but athletics, same thing. Nearly most everything is a ground-based sport in some fashion or another at the end of the day. So the foot and the ankle complex is the most next important.
Yeah.
So the rooting, okay? Then we start getting into the big power generators, the shoulder complex and the hip complex. There's no priority one over the other, but we're developing power from a base and throwing it out to some distal end. Could be your shoulder if you're, you know, tackling in football, but it might be throwing a baseball all the way out to the hand.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's no priority there. And then if we get past that, which usually rarely ever do we actually get into knees, elbows, things like that, right? Because at the end of the day, these are output joints. They're what we call a fixed joint, and where these other ones are mobile joints. And so your issues, if you've got knee problems, it's not your knee usually, unless you like fell down and cracked your knee, like, or got hit by physical trauma will cause a knee problem. But just life in general, your knee problem is from something else. Okay. So if we organize it based on that, and that's where we want to start, it doesn't mean we always have to, every single problem that we get, we got to jump back to the spine. If we know that it's good, we do a quick look and assessment, go, good posture, braced well. Okay. Everything looks good. We can start, that can accelerate a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is don't overlook it. If there's an issue there, you need to make sure it's addressed because it's going to affect everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people have, a messed up elbow or something like that, they'll look to just their shoulder. But I think what you're mentioning makes a lot of sense, and that's, what Kelly Starrett helped me with quite a bit. He was like, well, you're tearing your pec because you can't move your thoracic spine at all. And he's like, you're kind of forward. You kind of are hunched forward a little bit. And he's like, if you can get yourself to open up a little bit, you'll be able to press a lot easier. You won't have to rely on flexing your chest so hard, especially, flexing your chest with your kind of shoulders forward as you go to press is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. We've got that shoulder decentrated. You're lacking that internal rotation, right? That's going to load up that elbow huge. But yeah, it's going to start in here. So we see that. And now a lot of that is based on the I hate this word, scapular humeral rhythm, but the rhythm that scapula is working in relation to the shoulder movement, in relation to the spine. And so a lot of people want to lock that up while they're lifting. But, go look at Kirill bench. He's got beautiful, that scapula is moving. When it locks up, now we can't move, we can't internally rotate, and we see this dump. It rolls into the thoracic spine as well. And all this stuff happens because we've actually locked it down and not allowing it to move the way that we should. So anyway.
Even with all this knowledge, though, you still run into some problems here and there, right? Because heavy-ass weight is heavy-ass weight.
Well, that's what it is. That's why I loved, one of the things I love about chasing crazy feats is I learned so much in the process. It accelerates my knowledge by years, sometimes in a matter of weeks, right? Trying to squat 800 pounds every day for 30 days or trying
Did you make it through that?
I did.
You got killed somewhere in the middle there, right?
But I made it. No, I finished. It was the 400 kilo, 880 pound deadlift every day.
Ooh.
That I didn't make it through that one. So
How far did you get?
Made it through day 16.
That's insane.
Still.
So, which is, that was tough. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, but you learn so much because there's no out. A little bit of soreness is gonna cascade if you got a little bit of an issue, and you've got 800 pounds on your back again tomorrow, and again the day after that, again the day after that, you're gonna get hit by a train. It's gonna come right over the freaking top of you and destroy you. And so you have no opportunity for error. So learning in that process.
Is there any way to prepare for lifting like that? Is there any way to prepare to lift 800 pounds every day, or is it just a lifelong of training?
So, yes, there is a way to prepare for that. Yes, it is a lifelong of training. So it's a matter of understanding that it's an axial load, right? We're loading the spine from top to bottom. I'm going to detour on a side discussion for just a minute because a lot of people think about work capacity and they want to jump to, I got a sled, I got to sprint with the sled, I got to do my prowler, I got to do the battling ropes. It's going to increase my work capacity. Well, for powerlifting, it's not. Your work capacity is your ability to do the movement more frequently with more volume and more weight or intensity, right? So it's about increasing your axial load tolerancing because the two main lifts are axial loaded, the deadlift and the squat, okay? So this was part of the process of what I've been working on for the last 4 to 5 years, which is increasing my axial loading tolerance, my work capacity. So that's something that's kind of lifelong, but understanding that that is a loading vector, right? So weights this way, straight up and down. If I'm a rower, it's a front to back movement. And so I would want to build my tolerance within that vector. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you can't just like say, hey, I'm going to jump on this Bulgarian routine and go to squatting every day. I mean, you can, but you're going to get run over by that train again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to understand that it's small changes. If you're squatting once a week, don't just add a second day, okay? Take your volume in those one session and split it into 2. Run that for a month, then add a set, okay? And slowly build up until now you've got 2 full squat sessions. Now take those 2 sessions and split it, same volume, into 3 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly start building that up, right? That's how you increase your tolerance for that. So we did that in the deadlift. The whole training cycle was working towards increasing that frequency so that I would be able to load 880 pounds, 881 or 2 or whatever it is for the kilo conversion.
Yeah.
Every single day.
How long was that cycle, by the way, that training cycle?
That was... I started it in the spring, and we did the event in November.
Whew.
So,
Okay.
yeah. But it's the larger piece of a bigger cycle around axial loading.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of people like, oh, you haven't deadlifted for a year and a half. Like, how can you do that? How can you not squat for a year? I'm like, well, I was deadlifting.
Yeah.
I was squatting
Mm-hmm.
because it's all axial loading,
Yeah.
right? So my movement patterns are pretty refined.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the regular training that people are doing is around managing those, basically greasing the groove, learning the movement, doing this sort of stuff.
So maybe it's a little bit different than, what I often run into and what I often see is people lifting too heavy too often, but it's probably more so, like, that may be true, but it's probably more so of the fact that they're just not prepared for that, because you can lift heavy often.
You can, but you've got to build to that.
You got to develop it.
Like, I've been training for over 30 years, and I've also been training specifically only around like increasing my axial loading frequency for 4 to 5 years as I chase this grand goals campaign. That's what that's been all about. Mm-hmm. And so these are just side steps as feats in the process, doing some fundraisers for some causes that I believe in.
1,000-pound squat and 1,000-pound deadlift, but not for 1 rep, for 3 reps. Is that the goal? That's the main goal,
that is
right?
the goal. I did miss the deadlift. I mean, I didn't lock out the 3rd rep, but regardless, I still did reps,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that is the goal. So when I announced the ground goals campaign, like 4 years, I think it was 4 years ago, I just said, hey, I'm going for 1,000-pound squat. But the plan all along was to do reps with both on the squat and deadlift and be the first and only person to have done that. And
how much time will be split between the two, or is it in the same day, if that's even possible?
Oh no, I'm not doing the deadlifting. I'm not doing them. So I'm training 1 lift. So a lot of people don't understand.
I see.
That's part of the trick, right? Is all of my recovery efforts. If I was squatting and deadlifting, or like doing a full meet, people like, hey, you should go do a meet. You'll total 2,500 pounds. I'm like, no, not even close. Like, I can't train with the weights that I'm training with if I was doing those other things. All I'm doing right now is squatting. Mm-hmm. When I did the deadlift, in those final phases, I mean, there's other stuff we did in the other developmental blocks leading into it. Same with the squat.
Yeah.
But I only deadlifted.
Excuse me. Spreading fatigue seems to be like probably the biggest change in powerlifting that I've seen, where people are doing exactly what you're saying, where they're maybe squatting more often or deadlifting or benching more often because it's something that they're trying to increase, something they're trying to bring up. Years ago when I was doing like a lot of West Side type stuff, I think you were doing a lot of West Side type stuff, right?
Yep.
What have you kind of learned since that time period? Not that like the West Side stuff is wrong by any means. It's just that there's a lot of different things out there, and modern day powerlifting has the weights have changed. It's insane what the women are lifting, and there's a lot of guys breaking
know.
world records and stuff. It's
I was
wild.
thinking about that the other day. I'm sitting there, I'm warming up, right? And I'm like, I'm not even at my last warm up. I'm like, shit. When I was competing like 7 years ago, that was the all-time world record. Well, not at the weight I'm sitting at right now on it, but you know, but I'm like, that was the number we're all shooting for, you know. And then like Sam Bird took it, then I took it, but I'm like, and then Sam took it again. Anyway, and then no, it went back and forth a few times. Anyway, I'm like, that's just nuts where it's gone from. What like these like just an 800-pound squat used to be, raw squat was like phenomenal, and now it's like you've got to have that just to, you know, be competitive. Like you know, you're not even anybody yet. You know, like the 815 pounds was the all-time world record at the 220 clump class. Now it's 917 pounds. So, like, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So back to your question. Yeah, I did conjugate, followed a lot of West Side stuff for about 10 years. And when I switched to raw lifting, I was still doing the same thing. But I think the big thing for me has been just getting more specific with the periodization. So really understanding, you know, what we're loading, why we're trying to load it, and then developing, you know, very specific plans with each block that are building on each other, but at the same time not neglecting the qualities that you developed in the last block. So you can still do that with periodization. So West Side is all about like maintaining and developing a number of qualities at the same time all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's more about like focusing on one quality that we're going to develop right now. So accelerating that further, but still doing some of the other work that's maintaining like the hypertrophy or the strength that you did in the last block, right? Yeah. And I found that is able to accomplish a lot more. The other is I found that speed work for me and a lot of people that I work with wasn't adding a significant amount of value. I get the same results if I just did like high rep benching or there was a whole lot of ways. So it was so non-specific and misused by a lot of people too. So I think that's the other thing of why I saw a lot of it not being very useful is people are just in poor position because the weight's so light that they would bench or squat in a manner that wasn't their bench or squat, you know? And so managing those heavier thresholds, not necessarily always going to a max effort triple, leaving a little in the tank, backing it down just a little bit, hitting more sets in volume in those upper ranges, and then end up having a better result on the strength because I'd be able to build more intensity, more volume work in those ranges. They're going to net me a bigger squat where, you know, doing some speed work with 150 pounds and some bands wasn't doing a lot for me.
So let me ask you this.
So it was a lot of waste. It was wasted effort in my mind. So getting more specific work better.
Yeah. So when it comes to, let's say, lifters that right now speed work is they do a lot of work with speed work. What should they be thinking about with when applying it? Like, why should they apply it if they do, and how should they apply it correctly?
So the focus needs to be on quality of movement first. So it needs to be executed exactly like it would in a competition. So you see people do 3 reps or 2 reps really fast on the bench. They'll go up so high they like I said, you want to have good scapular humeral, but they're actually protracting so far with their shoulders and pushing it up there so it could look fast and then come back down, and it's just sloppy. The joint is not working in the same manner that it normally would. So it's really getting down to having clean, crisp movement, executed exactly like your maximal effort. Okay, that needs to be priority. And then it's about putting the maximal effort into it, not making the bar go as fast as possible. So mentally putting everything, okay, I want to execute this perfectly, and then put as much effort behind it, but not focus on how fast is it if I've got a VBT device, or how fast does it look on camera?
Yeah.
See this all the time with people pulling super fast deadlifts. And they just look like crap. They're like, look at that. I'm going to be so good. I'm like, no, you're never going to be able to lock it out. Like, you're teaching yourself bad patterns. You're not engaging. It's like, it's not what you're going to and how you're going to move when you've got that grinder deadlift that you're trying to finish at a meet.
You think about it like, in a new sport, whenever you're playing a new sport, you're trying jujitsu.
It's skill acquisition.
Yeah,
you're completely missing the skill acquisition part.
Right, and your coach will say, "Hey, do this at like 50%," and then you go to do you do it at 50%, then you go to do it at 100, and you mess it up. And like, okay, let me slow it back down again.
Yep.
And you kind of learn it. And what I've noticed with speed work for a lot of people too, a real simple fix is just to add a little bit of weight to the bar. People are really strict on like percentages and following, what came out of this book. But you got to realize a lot of the Louis Simmons stuff applied a little bit more to like shirted and geared powerlifting and things like that. And he had a specific recipe for a specific reason with a specific group of lifters.
Yep.
And for yourself, I think for other people, they should just, add some weight on there. That'll slow down the bar, which I understand, like you're trying to move the weight as fast as possible. But if we go back to Dr. Squat, one of the first guys to squat 1,000 pounds, talking about compensatory acceleration, you're just trying to move the bar as fast as you can. So you're trying to be violent against the weight. Yep. But it doesn't necessarily have to always look super fast.
Exactly. That's what I said. It's about the effort that you're putting into it, not necessarily how fast it's going. Because if you focus on that other piece, the other things are going to go out the window.
You hook up a lot of stuff to your lifts and stuff, and you're always tracking the speed. And there's probably nobody else that I know that has tracked so many lifts. What have you learned from that, and what are you doing? What's it for?
Yeah, so it's a form of, I use it as a form of auto-regulation. And so I started this not too long after, maybe around 2010 or 2012. So I first got into the speed work from Louis. And so I ordered a VBT device. And I discovered that I could actually use the tool in a completely different manner. I would actually use the tool for my heavy stuff, not for my speed work. And so what we do is actually create, I can use fancy words, linear regression line. We just track all your lifts as you work towards a maximum, right? And the speed's going to go down. And it's just a line with a slope like such. That's it. So we find the slope of that line. So now we know anywhere on that, weight spectrum. So you hit 315 and you hit 405. Well, I know what 385 is going to be. I know what 360 is going to be. I know what everything's going to be. Okay. So now we're able to replace percentages because we know 405 is X percent, 80% of your squat, or if you're just over 500 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. So now if we're looking at periodization, we know that we're going to schedule X number of reps in an 80 to 85% zone. That's going to be my hypertrophy zone, let's say. Okay. And I want to get this many lifts in that area. Well, if you're using percentages, it's based off of some max that you did 6 months ago, right? And it doesn't know that you've gone up, you've gone down. You're basing it on a plan that you're going to have this meet bench at this amount on some day. You don't know if you're ahead of plan, behind plan. Your body doesn't know what plan you made. It doesn't know that the kids were up late last night with a cold and you got 2 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. And you may still be ready to go, or you may not. Okay. So what we do is, instead of saying, I want 12 reps in the 80-85% range, which could be 3 sets of 4 or 4 sets of 3 or 6 sets of 2, I don't give a fuck. Like, just whatever you want to come up with there, okay? But that's the intensity zone. That's the volume that we want. So now if I replace the speed that would be 80 to 85%, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to work up and hit those 12 reps within that speed zone, which is actually what my max is that day. So, for example, when I was doing deadlifting, okay, speed zone may have had me basically somewhere, I know that I'm supposed to be around like 825 for those number of reps, okay? And I go in and I do my training. Maybe 825 was light. Maybe I should have bumped it. And it could have been 835. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not that good to know. Because guess what? 825 is freaking heavy. Okay? I don't know that I could have had 10, 5, 15 pounds more on the bar that day. So now I'm able to take advantage of every little bump in my strength as I'm going and actually train to the max. Because a lot of people think about auto-regulation as doing less. It's time to back off, not train today, do less sets. It's also about doing more. And if you manage that over an entire training cycle, you can find that you'll be able to take the opportunity way more often. Or it could be, hey, this is a little heavy. Those kids, being up all night with the kids had a little bit with me, but I was still able to get the appropriate amount of training to get the fatigue that I wanted from my training. So I had to back off 15 pounds. The first question is, am I putting in the effort? Because it might just be in my head. And I just this is our first, hey, I'm not moving as fast as I should. Well, are you trying? Sometimes you just need to freaking fix it in your head. So the velocity helps you with that. So it's the day you're like dragging and it's just like, oh man, I'm supposed to do 3 sets of 4. I'm going to be smart. I'm only going to do 2. And you get to that second set and you're like, God damn, fuck you, device. They're still fast. I got that extra set.
Yeah.
It's just in my head.
Yeah.
So it's really precisely managing the auto-regulation and allowing you to make minute adjustments. So one, that you don't overtrain on those times, but you can still get training in instead of just bagging it. And then the other is taking opportunity of every chance you get. Because your max isn't 500 pounds. Like one day it's 510, another day it's 490, 505. You know, it bounces around a little bit. And then you're creating this plan going into a meet based on what you hope. You don't know what gains you're going to make during that time. You definitely can't like pick some program off the internet and go, I'm going to do exactly this because that program says I'm going to get 7%. That's a descriptive program, not a prescriptive. Like that program was based on some coach coaching some lifter and how they progressed and all their many peaks and valleys along the line. Are you going to have all the same little, because all those peaks and valleys are also based on everything else that's going on in your life. Traveling down here. You know, that's going to have an effect.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, I'm getting over the tail end of a cold. Okay. My daughter's sick. Hopefully she sleeps good tonight. You know, when I get home, like, there's a whole lot of other things in life. A boss yelling at you when you're on the car, you know, driving down the road with Mark Bell, you know, those little stresses all add up. And at the end of the day, we could try to measure, and there's a lot of other ways. HRV is another tool. There's a lot of other ways to measure it, but at the end of the day, nobody tells you what the weight should be on the bar today, and this is a way to tell you what you can take an opportunity of. So it's really cool. Is it the be-all, end-all? No. It's really useful for people like me that aren't very good subjective, because I could be like, you know, nosebleed pouring out my face, passed out, falling over the bar, and you know, my coach, I'm coached by my staff. I have been for 4 or 5 years. Be like, can you subjectively rate that routine on a 1 to 5? 5 being like the end. I'm like, I was a 4. I had more left. That'll be me every time. Like, I'm like, I'm not very good at that. So
a lot of lifters probably heard that. They're like, VBT devices sound dope, but I don't have access to one.
Yep.
What can they, because I mean, you know, there's RP, there's all these other ways, but what are some ways that they can look at that subjectively?
Yep. So RPE is really good. So that was developed off I think the Boggs-Warner scale, which was used in the medical community, which was a 1 through 20 scale. Mike Toucher really brought that to light in the lifting community and based it down to a 1 to 10 scale. And it takes a little bit of skill, like I said. So someone like me, I'm not very good at RPE. I can be if I really, really give some thought to it. New lifters really struggle at RPE because guess what? Everything feels heavy. You're like, oh, that was way too much. Like, no, that's like a 7, dude. Like, that was really heavy. Yeah, weights are heavy. Get used to it.
Remember the first time you did a deadlift? You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like that every time? That feels terrible.
So RPE is a skill that you've got to have or that you can develop. We keep ours just the simple 1 through 5, but it's the same concept. You know, for subjectively rating your routines and where your fatigue's at and how hard the session was. A lot of like hypertrophy work we'll manage on a reps in reserve. Same thing. Again, it's like an RPE, but it's just a little bit different and makes it easier. So leave 1 or 2 in the tank, leave 3 to 4 in the tank. So really good for doing, hey, I want you to do 4 sets of 10 of some lat pull downs, and I want you to leave 3 reps in the tank. So it doesn't take as much like practice, but those are some good ways to kind of to manage that without having a technological device. So it's definitely not a requirement. And it's hopefully, well, not hopefully, I know that there's actually going to be some more companies releasing more economical based good quality products in that field.
Okay.
So we end up consulting with most every company that brings VBT to market, because they know who we are, what we do. So we know a lot of what what those different companies are up to. So this next year, I expect a couple pretty good units to be hitting the market. So
How do you recover from these workouts? You got any special strategies? You use hot or cold baths or anything like that, or what are you doing?
yeah, well, right now, so my training right now is freaking nuts. I can't describe how bad it is. And you know what? I only train 1 day a week, maybe 2. I just dropped the second day out this training block though. So I squat once a week. That's it. Of course, I'm end up doing 6 reps around a 940 to 950 pound load. And then I'll do a drop set, of 4 or 5 reps around 900 pounds after doing 3 or 4 sets in the upper range. That shit is freaking nuts. I don't know how to tell you, like, when I squatted less, like working out to a squat, it'd leave your legs sore, maybe your back sore. My lats, my biceps, my triceps, my delts, my traps, like everything is just fried to hell. It's freaking crazy. So yeah, let's talk recovery. Because that is what I'm doing the other 6 days of the week. Actually, that day too. So one thing I like to do immediately post-training, if I can, time permits, doesn't like, hey, I'm running late, I got to get home and have dinner with the kids and the wife. That's a higher priority. So if my squat routine runs late and I don't have time to do a little bit of soft tissue work cleanup or whatever immediately post-session, it's got to wait, even though it's the priority for training. There's other higher priorities in life. So, but the best thing for me is, like, if you have anything that's starting to tighten up or is an issue, is not to wait till the next squat session and then roll it out right before you get there. Guess what? That's too late. That's too late. Yeah. You actually want to be like tight and ready come that session. You not like sore tight, but you don't want to like get everything super loose before you go get under a bar. I think you know this, Mark. I've heard you talk on this before. Yeah. You don't want to roll around on the mat and get ready to fall asleep before you train.
Yeah, right.
But the longer I can spend not in a compensatory pattern. So, and by that I mean, like, if my quads tighten up really bad and they start pulling on the front of my pelvis and it pulls my pelvis position forward, and now I'm walking around and big ATP, low back starts getting sore, this starts hanging out because it's not engaged, my abs. If I spend a day or two like that, it's going to create problems. Yeah. If I'm walking on one leg more than the other because this hip's sore. So the most amount of time, and this is what I really learned in like the 800 squat everyday challenge, I did my soft tissue work immediately post-training. And then that would give me 24 hours of walking around, good position, good posture, feeling well, because the biggest recovery tool, I'm going to go through a few here, and some of them cost a lot of money, some are free, whatever. This is the most impactful one is movement. Movement, your daily walks, things like that. But if I'm walking around hobbled, I'm not going to get the recovery from it. So you want to spend less time moving poorly. So doing that immediately post. Right now I do a little bit of static blood flow restriction immediately post-training. So this is a performance-based routine I got from Dr. Mario Novo, who's a leader in the BFR community. And so it's to do BFR effectively, you actually need the right tools, though. You can't just slap a band on your leg. You actually need to know what the venous flow is, right? And
is it like almost like a blood pressure cuff type
It's
device?
a blood pressure cuff, yeah. So, But what you have to do is somebody has to measure when you release it, and then find the pressure that the flow is at, that the flow returns, and then you base it off of percentages from
You
that.
found a lot of benefit from that?
Yeah, so I do BFR 5 minutes on, 1 minute off for 3 rounds, and then I use the Mark Pro E-Stim unit, which Kelly Starrett turned me on to, on the top of that, stimulating that. So that really enhances recovery for me. It's minor, but Epsom salt baths, just relaxing.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of, I don't know that it's a big game changer by any means, but you know what? It can be useful at times.
Gives you 10, 20 minutes to yourself where you're just chilling.
Yeah, exactly. There's a mental aspect to it,
Yeah.
as well as there is some physical stuff that it does, but it's not like, you know,
A game changer.
it's not a game changer. But I enjoy that. I do it almost daily right now because of where I'm at. Anything that enhances, so I talked about the BFR, but anything that really enhances blood flow to the tissue is going to be huge, right? So your daily walks, that's a great one. One of the products, so one of my companies is Build Fast Formula. We make a Vasoblitz, which it really enhances blood flow.
You sent me some, and it tastes really good.
It does taste fantastic. A lot of people think of those as a pump product because it does. It makes you fuller, makes you vascular, which actually enhances your performance if you walk in that way.
Makes you vascular even if you're fat.
Yeah. To a point.
What's in it, by the way?
What's that?
What's in it?
So a lot of nitrates and then a form of lactate. So
Okay.
basically just 4 ingredients, research-based. So there was studies done that showed enhanced hypertrophy, endurance, and anabolism over 18 days. So using the product and then at specific dosages daily. So here's
Wow.
this is what everybody misses with the NO type products. And so what we've come to the market is, here's a daily use product because it builds in your system. And then if you allow it to build in your system, it's going to really enhance recovery. And that's where I want to get to, because that's where the big benefit for me is like that enhanced recovery from like that nourishment and replenishment and clearing everything is huge. So absolutely phenomenal approach is using those type products on a daily basis, and we have that laid out with ours. Wow. And so it's and having the right dosage. A lot of them skimp on some of the materials that are in there, but I don't want to have this be a pitch or anything. So we'll just talk about daily use of nitrates. Is absolutely fantastic. So let's see.
Sleep, of course.
Yes, sleep. I actually just picked up.
I saw your video with the chili pad. I think, right?
Yeah.
Tell people about the chili pad. What is this thing?
So it's freaking cool. That's what it is. Well, literally freaking cool. So it is basically like an air conditioner that goes in your bed. So it's got these micro tubes that
Every
run under.
fat guy's like leaning forward right now, like, what? What's this?
Or anybody on Turin.
Like Nsima.
I'm telling you, those guys got to love something like that because anyway. But I have.
The trend sweats.
I don't have those, but
Worse than the meat sweats.
so, but it's a bunch of tubes. It's a mattress cover, and it's hooked to an AC unit, and you can actually set like your desired temperature, and it can change through the night. You can have schedules that automatically turn on, adjust, and so you're basically controlling the environment in your bed, which is huge. Like most people, we need to sleep around 67 degrees. I heat up a lot at night, so I ended up being way above that, and that's one of the biggest reasons for waking up is getting too hot, and so people. This really helps you once you find like your optimal temperature, you can just set it, and it might be, here's a temperature that helps me fall asleep, and then it drops later to something else, and then it'll actually wake you up. So you set it, hey, at 7:10, I want to wake up, and it'll heat up to whatever temp, and it'll just naturally wake you up. No alarm clock. Like,
Because you're like, I'm sweating so bad. I need to get up.
actually, I just have my wife's turns up and heats up. It goes up to like 115.
Ah.
And that wakes her up. Mine, I just I just had the cooler shut off on mine.
And then your body just.
And then I just wake up because I'm like, this is hot. I'm sweaty.
And you've noticed like a considerable like I guess improvement in your sleep.
Yeah. So, and I don't have like one of those like Aura rings or any of the other stuff, but when I was reading up on it, I found that a lot of people that have those and actually measure their deep sleep, when they've started using it, it's had a substantial impact on their deep sleep. But I don't have any of those metrics myself to speak to, but really cool. I have no affiliation with them or endorsement, nothing like this. No, I don't.
Are you able to sleep well in general?
For the most part, I sleep a lot. I need a lot of sleep. I always have my whole life.
You try to lay down for what, 9 hours, 10 hours, something like that?
9-10 hours, and then usually I'll take a 20 to 40-minute nap in the middle of the day too. So a lot of times before training.
I noticed
my pre-training nap. I've got the back of our podcast room. There's a couch, and that's everybody's like, that's Duffin's sleeping couch. So yeah. I
noticed for myself that it helps if I can just lay down for a long period of time, because I don't think my quality sleep is awesome. So I try to just lay down for 8 hours plus, best I can.
I fall asleep instantly. I
always fall asleep easy, but then I kind of wake up here and there.
Yeah. So those are some of the big ones. I use some other stuff. The E-stem I still use at other particular times. I used a pulsed electromagnetic frequency device as well, PEMF. So it does the same thing. It basically, the tiny capillaries in the body, the pulsing of the PEMF like expands and contracts those. And so it enhances your blood flow through the body without relying on the heart as much and really get some of those harder to reach tissues. So I use that, but those devices are pretty expensive and I wouldn't recommend for an individual use unless you're rolling in the dough for some reason.
Yeah.
They're usually like something that needs shared. Unfortunately, to have it effective though, you need to use it daily. The window for its use is the window that it's active is about 72 hours. So daily use keeps that enhanced blood flow into those kind of micro tissue areas. So that's pretty cool. But I don't think it's really viable for most people.
But the E-stem is, right? Like the
E-stem is, yep. I know I use the Mark Pro because it's it's FDA approved. It's a little spendier than, because you can find really cheap ones on eBay. I don't know how effective they are. So I've used some of those before. So the Mark Pro is actually the frequency on it is specifically for recovery, where a lot of the E-stem devices out there are actually a higher frequency, and it's about blocking pain. So that you don't want that. I do believe there are some other FDA-approved devices in the recovery area now, but I don't know who or any details on that. But if you shop around, you might be able to get something. But you want that recovery frequency, not the I've got back pain and I want to shut it off. Same as popping a pill, like there's times you need that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my only words on that one. So,
are you doing any assistance work during this style of training, or are you mainly just getting that squat in and taking off?
So in this, where I'm at in this block, there's several blocks that have led into this. So in those, there was a lot of development of the specific qualities that I needed. So like there was a lot of assistance work on upper back move, just to be able to hold that weight, right? There was a lot of like good mornings, transformer bar squats, things of that nature, back just direct lat work. And then as it's gotten more specific. So right now this block is just squatting and then belt squat another day of the week. But I've missed the last couple belt squat sessions. And it was only a 4-week block. So probably, and there wasn't going to be any in the next section. I do daily work on movement. So there's stuff that I do to make sure that everything's working together that it breaks down a little bit on me. And so there's a lot of movement work that I do, and it's really around this area, the torso and making sure that everything is operating the way that it should be and getting the connection between all that working. So I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Yeah. How long does that work usually like take you?
It could be 5 minutes. It could be 40 to 45 minutes. So it depends on how much time I've got, what kind of, if I'm in pain, trying to deal with specific issues. If I'm feeling good, I just roll around. It's a lot of like rolling type work, movement drills that I do. And if I'm feeling good, I keep it pretty minimal.
Yeah.
Pre-training, I do a little bit, very, very minimal, because I want to turn it on, but I don't want to fatigue myself.
Yeah.
And then when it's, as far as assistance work, like, no, it's just, I work up and I squat. Like, that's it. And then I'm done. So, so one thing that we do, so do rolling work every day. And I mentioned getting soft tissue work done immediately post session. There's a couple times through the week where I'll have more soft tissue work done. It's all in-house. I've got a chiro in-house, an LMT in-house. And we measure, we take a laser and look at pelvis rotation, torso, shoulders, basically the alignment of everything. And that's actually what drives a lot of the soft tissue work. So if we see that I'm kind of twisted and rotated or pulled or different ways, that'll go, oh, hey, we really need to address this. We'll clean up that tissue, recheck on the laser, and make sure that I'm aligned as best or within the parameters that I am. I've got a fair bit of rotation of the pelvis, but what we don't want to see is more or one side more than the other. We're looking for balance of a lot of these, and we're getting it in the norm for me. But that drives a lot of that. So, and that makes a huge, huge difference. Like I said, if we can get that cleaned up, then just living life and moving well and, all that stuff, walking, carrying the kids around, like that's all additive if I'm not jacked up.
So you said you have that in-house actually. When you're thinking about like athletes, right? ART, chiro, that type of work, if they can find a good one, how often, I mean, I know it's dependent on the problems that an athlete has, but in general, like how often do you think you should say that they would want to take advantage of something like that?
That's tough because optimally, you really shouldn't need it, right?
Okay.
So if we've got a well-designed training program, because an athlete is using strength training to be additive to their athletic performance. So they shouldn't be pushing the envelope of what the human is capable of in the gym, or they're setting themselves up for potential failure, on the, it's not to win the gym, it's to win on the field.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I'm talking about like strength athletes.
Strength
too,
athletes.
yeah.
Okay. So strength athletes, again, it just depends on what your needs are.
Yeah.
Like if you come to, I think if you come to rely on it and the body expects it or needs it, that is not what you want. So I go a big portion of the year with not getting regular work done, but in these phases, in certain phases of training, I'll put that in to keep, because you're starting to build and accumulate fatigue beyond what the body's recovering from. Like that's part of the peaking process, right? So if we can do that, or we can use it to enhance, you can still use it to enhance performance though too. So again, it all depends.
Yeah.
But if I can do more work in a shorter period of time, I will get stronger. Okay. So if my recovery without it is 8 days, I can only do so much work every 8th day. But now if I use it, feel better, and maybe I can get it down to 6, well, add that up over a training cycle, I'm going to get stronger. If I can get it to 4, I'm going to be even, it's simple math. The more work I can do in a smaller amount of time. So you can use it. It's not needed, but you can still use it to, like I said, rolling yourself out in a nice slow roll post-workout, like it's going to help the recovery process, right? So if you can do that, and now you can get more work in next session. This same thing goes to like the argument of like form doesn't matter or position doesn't matter. There's a lot of people like to say that. And I think there's validity to that, because like it's all about building tolerance to different loads. And if I can develop tolerance to handling a load at deadlifting with a rounded back, I'm going to be stronger at handling that rounded back. Having a rounded back doesn't mean that you're going to injure your back.
Yeah.
Sure, the risk is slightly higher, but what people miss is how much load can you tolerate in a window of time, intensity and volume in those positions. So I want you to, rounded back doesn't matter. So you familiar with a Jefferson curl?
No.
So not like the Jefferson deadlift, the best deadlift of all time. The Jefferson curl is a segmental deadlift. Each segment of the spine,
Yeah.
you go like this, okay?
Okay.
So if it doesn't, so this is my argument for the people that say it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, I'd like every one of your training sessions to be max effort Jefferson curls. Heck, actually just do one max effort Jefferson curl. Yep. And you're not going to be able to tolerate much. So if you can't tolerate as much load, much frequency, I can't train as much, I can't get as strong. That's where form matters. Mark, you know this with your shoulder. Like when it's bugging you and you're not moving well, you can't get as much work in every week.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not going to get as strong if I don't take care of it. So there's something to the argument. It doesn't mean if you're in poor position that you are going to get injured. I agree with this. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but the problem is people are arguing this in the training world. And the goal of training is to get as strong as possible. And it won't allow you to do that. So that's a huge thing. If I move better, I will be able to tolerate more loads with more frequency, with more volume. What's that going to equal? I don't need a study. That means you're going to be stronger.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my rant on that, because there's validity to what people are saying, but they're using this stuff completely out of context for like the environment that we live in.
Well, if you lift in shitty positions and you'll just build up a tolerance for it, as you're saying, like you think about a lot of the people that come into powerlifting that are super strong, what's their background? You know, a lot of times they have like manual labor jobs. And when you're, baling hay or picking up sheetrock and doing all these weird things, climbing a ladder and using a hammer and like all these different things, you're in weird positions.
Yep.
You're not like, okay, let me have my belt on, let me make sure I brace. Like you're not able to really do that in those circumstances. That builds up tons of strength.
Yeah, it does. That's what they call the farm boy strong, right?
That's right. What's your food like nowadays? I mean, I remember, when we first met, you were in the 200-pound range or so. And I think it's been kind of a little difficult for you to gain weight, or
I've
is that right?
always struggled with gaining weight. It's been a challenge for me.
It looked like you figured it out.
I know I'm stuck right now. I'm trying to get fatter.
What are you
at, by the way?
280. Whew. I'm trying to get fat, and it's just like I can't get over because I want to, like, if I can get to 300 pounds, that's more belly to bounce off of.
Yeah.
It's going to make my goal a lot easier. It doesn't matter like that it's muscle or fat. Like, you know it. That belly's going to run into my legs. And I'm going to bounce off of it. And I'm going to like that.
It's going to help a lot. Yeah.
Exactly.
How about
it's a fat suit. People are like, are you wearing a suit? Yeah, fat suit.
How about some Doritos? You eating any Doritos?
I have. I like the Doritos.
They're a key factor in this whole thing.
I've been recently I've resorted to I have a protein shake, which I normally don't. I like Whole Foods, but like I'm just trying to get it more liquid. So I have a protein shake like in morning and then before bed. So now it's 2 scoops of protein, scoop of collagen, and a full 1/3 cup scoop of olive oil. And I'm down about about 1.5 liters of olive oil in the last like week or 2 weeks.
Oh my
so
God.
And
down the old hatch.
Have you
it's
gained?
No, I'm still the same.
Damn.
It's like killing me.
Oh my God.
What about food? What you doing food wise, like regular food?
Regular food? Well, I have some big help there. So if you go check out my Instagram, if you see some food posts, click the person tagged, which is my wife, and she is incredible. So the stuff, you can just go click on her page and see what I eat, JVQUELINE. So it's Jacqueline with a V instead of an A.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was like,
took me a little while too, I'll have to admit. But I'm not the smartest sometimes either, and sometimes you can just call me smelly too.
Makes it easy, right?
But it's like having a chef in the house. Like, she just makes phenomenal food every day, and it's healthy. So yeah, that top one there,
Ooh.
sourdough. I think it was can't remember 20.
Is that like a pizza?
Yep.
Awesome.
And just keep scrolling down there. Fresh brioche.
Ooh.
Oh, some ice cream cookies.
Oh,
So she made the ice cream from scratch. The cookies from everything's all made 100% from scratch.
damn.
Keep scrolling down. Oh yeah,
This looks incredible.
there's
Oh my God.
Holy.
Is she like a chef, man?
Basically, yes. Yeah, I can't. She's got some big projects underway. I can't really speak to right now. So,
What about that restaurant that we
confidentiality.
went to when Mark and I were down there? That was That was really good.
that's a good place. Yeah,
I
her,
can't-
her food's better, but
Wow.
that's good. Scroll down. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Do you feel like you're able to eat enough?
That's
Or
my
your
problem.
schedules
That's my problem. Is
Makes
just
it tough.
it's more just like being able to tolerate like eating that much.
Do you eat
So-
anything in the morning? Do you eat when you first wake up and stuff like that?
I do. I just when I'm just living life. Oh yeah, scroll back up. Right, that middle one, that mac and cheese, right above that. Pork belly mac and cheese.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh, yes. Lovely.
That had
That
to be
is
good.
that is fatty gains right
I
there.
love pork belly,
mac
man.
and cheese.
I love pork belly. Oh.
So,
Sorry to everyone that's fasting.
but I like fasting just as a quality of life. I'm not like, oh, it's gonna make your growth hormone and other nonsense. Like, whatever. It just helps me like quality of life. I like that feeling during the first part of the day. But if I'm trying to gain weight, like, you ain't gonna go from 280 to 300 intermittent fasting.
Right.
So, yeah, there's her trying to working on pilot's license. Oh no, wait, that's a different one.
I think the hardest thing for me when I was gaining weight was just
that faux go up
the
one above that.
frequency of the food.
Oh, that's just some
That looked good.
Yep.
You had
Yeah.
some Thai food,
Authentic faux broth. She like spent a day just making the broth.
or is that more
So,
Vietnamese?
Vietnamese.
Yeah. I was-
Yeah. Better. Oh, just bomb. So anyway, that is literally like what I eat like every day. So
Man, you're spoiled, bro.
what
the hell?
my sister calls me since she's just like, you're a spoiled little shit. I'm like, yep. So,
Nothing wrong with that.
so that's
That's good stuff.
yeah. So anyway, that's I eat pretty good. So the problem is like trying to eat bad and gain
Right.
weight on top of that. And yeah, even though my belly sticks out, I'm still pretty lean right now. It's a little strange. It's just like fills up and all the food in there and like whatever. But it's like I'm at the best composition at this weight I've ever been. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
hard to keep with the frequency when you're trying to eat like that.
It is.
It's
That's
been
the
very
challenge. You just
difficult.
get tired of eating. You're like, I can't wait till this. And people don't realize they're like, oh, it must be fun. I'm like, no, I actually I don't want to eat anymore, but I have to.
Yeah.
So
Snickers bars help a lot. Just sneaking one in here and there. 'Cause They
Ben
don't
and
really.
Jerry's helps.
Yeah, it's just so dense in calories. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a good way is polish everything off with a little ice cream because there's always some room for ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It fills the cracks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jessica was asking me what I wanted for lunch today, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's just
A lot.
protein, carbs, fats, and
Makes it
make
all
sure
better.
there's some cookies too. Make sure there's cookies.
And some grilled cheese. While you're at it.
Yeah. So if somebody was asking if they can go train at Kabuki Strength, is it like an open gym or
It is.
like
Yeah.
it is?
Anybody? There's a little drop-in fee or sign-up thing like
Mhm.
when you go in the entrance, but it's open to anyone. So,
That's
yep.
awesome. And then so how come you're training once, maybe even twice a week now?
Well, my goal is specifically the squat right now.
Mhm.
That is it. And so I'm maximizing all my recovery resources towards doing that. So I'm pushing the squat as far as I can. And so with this block, we're getting not quite to the realization phase yet, but there was other work, obviously, in all the prior blocks. But now it's getting where the intensity of the weights that I'm handling, if I do other work, I wouldn't be able to handle it. I wouldn't be able to recover. And so I wouldn't be moving what I am. And that's like I said, that's why I said I have to laugh when people say you should do a meet, because they don't understand. Like, I'm a one-hit wonder. Like, that's that's part of how I'm able. That's how I did the 1,000-pound deadlift. Like, that's all I did. And there's no squatting, there's no benching, there's no anything. And the same thing is going here as well right now. And I think it's, I'm trying to do something that nobody's done before. And to accomplish that, it's not what I recommend. This is not a good training or development protocol. But for me, I really don't need to add a lot more muscle or do anything like that to accomplish my goals. It's a lot of neurological training. I've got over 30 years of training under my belt. So I don't, I can go without doing that stuff for long periods of time and I'll still be just fine.
Yeah.
You have any desire to go after that Eddie Hall 1,100-pound deadlift?
Well, so that 880 deadlift challenge that I did for a couple weeks, and I said I made it through day 16, I tore off a hamstring. And there was some issues with my insurance and the surgeons and a bunch of stuff, and basically I wasn't able to get it repaired in time. And so I'm missing a hamstring. So I probably won't be, I already did what I wanted to do on the deadlift. I deadlifted 1,000 pounds for reps.
Yeah.
I deadlifted 400 kilos every day for 16 days straight. I don't have anything. I'm done, right? Yeah. And so when I'm done with this squat, I'm going to be 43. And, I've got a whole lot of other things in life. So a lot of my training is I'm going to drop my weight back down. I'm probably going to get down to around 240 and be focused on a lifestyle, health, and stuff like that, and providing content, more time to provide content, because, my time is very self-absorbed right now.
Yeah.
So our content, so all of our content is mostly produced by my coaching staff, and that's on our, I got to throw this out, our Kabuki_virtual coaching account. We produce daily content, and it's really, really cool. This is our free resource over the paid KMS. So we have both. There's not quite as much on this, but they drop content every single day. It also goes onto the KMS site where it's indexed to make things easy to find, unlike Instagram and whatnot. But it's tons of stuff on there. But I'm not able to, I don't have the time to do a lot of contribution to stuff like this right now, because it's very self-absorbed. So I want to get back to this. So this is I've been doing this a long time. I'm out of over 30 years. I set this goal 4 or 5 years ago. I've done half of it, and I've been building up to do the second half. And this is it for me. I'm done with the heavy, crazy fucking shit. I'll still be lifting. I'll still be helping people out. I'll still be doing all that stuff, kind of like what you're doing right now. And that's the shift and change in my life that's going to happen at that time. So the other half of that is, even if I had the hamstring, probably not. If I say when I pull off having done both, nobody else has done that. I think that's to do a squat and a deadlift 4 reps with 1,000 pounds for both.
What's the mental side of this like? Like waking up knowing that you have to deadlift 881, or knowing that you have to squat 800 pounds again, or what are you learning from that? I mean, it's got to be.
It's both of those are two different things, but God, those daily ones, that is so tough. Like, I look back at that 800 squat every day and that 80 deadlift every day, and I'm like, that can't be done. I'm like, I did it, but it can't be done. Like, and in the process, it's just such a, every day you're waking up and you're like, I literally went to bed like the later half of both those cycles every night. I'm like, I'm done tomorrow. Like, I'm done. I can't do this again. There's just no way I'm gonna give up. This is
You're
it.
preparing your speech, right?
And then I wake up the next morning. I'm like, okay, one more day. I got this. I can do this one more time. I got this. I'm fucking scared, and I go in and I do it. And then afterwards I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. This is fucking crazy. There's no way.
Yeah.
This is it. It is it. I'm fucking done. I can't believe I'm not gonna make it. But I just can't do it. Go to bed. Wake up the next day. Okay, one more time, Chris. You can do this one more time. One foot in front of the next. Just one more day. And that's what it was the whole time. So it's just one step. Just focus on just what's in front of you instead of the whole thing. Because if you think, this could be taken for life. Like if you put everything out there that you've got to do, like if you thought back, about everything that you had to do in your life to get to where you're at right now, it'd be kind of like overwhelming. Like, holy shit, that's some work. There's some gnarly stuff that I got to get through to get that. Like, it's just overwhelming versus like, you got to have okay, I want to do this for 30 days. That's my vision. That's my goal. But you got to focus on just right now and not go, I got fucking 2 more weeks of this. Holy fuck, that would just, one more day. One more day. So, but yeah, right now the squats are like, I'll go into a session, I'll read it. Like, my session this week, I'm supposed to do something in the low 900s for a double, 955 for a double, 970 for a double, and then do a drop down set with like 938 for a double. God, it's a little scary when you wake up and you go, "That's what I'm supposed to do today. That's what I'm supposed to do tomorrow."
How's that with the hamstring, man? I don't get it.
It is one of the smaller ones. It's the semitendinosus that comes through. It's not the 2 main heads, but the smaller one that comes around the inside of the knee and then wraps around to the front of the humerus. Humerus, wrong bone. But it's really active in stabilizing. So the full lockout in stabilization can be a little more challenging for me, particularly on one leg. Can be really challenging. But it doesn't seem to be affecting my squat right now. It is definitely why, one, I'd be wearing knee wraps regardless because I'm a cheater. But side note, I posted that video about how I wrap my knees. And I get this voice message from Mark 30 minutes later. It's like, I knew it all along, you fucking cheater. You're just useless. I can't believe blah, blah, blah. Just on and on. I think I deleted it. I got tired of listening to whatever rant it was. So. But
got to keep you in line.
Hey, whatever, right? So, but it does help my stabilization because just if I get in a belt squat and do marches, like this standing on that leg at full lockout, it wants to, they're gonna unlock a little bit. So wrapping that knee is really big for stabilization for me right now. But other than that, that was the problem I had with getting it reattached. It's an industry standard that one, when it detaches, they don't do it. So I was having some back and forth issues with the insurance and the surgeons and all this stuff. And so finally went outside the timeline of being able to get it fixed. Because there has been some that they have fixed on some athletes and it's been positive, but it's not the standard care. So it's not a super imperative one, but I do feel it does have an impact. Certainly I wouldn't want to deadlift because I know for a fact, because I felt the shift happen as it let loose, that as you go to lockout, that hip's going to just side shift really hard. And I just don't feel like deadlifting 800-900 plus pounds with that one gone. I think it's going to end up leading to some other issues. So
do you still talk to yourself before you do a lift?
Yeah, I do.
And do you have any control over what's happening, or you just you're in a weird zone?
I have so I have control over what I say, obviously. But yeah, I definitely have a very meditative state that I get into, very cerebral, I guess you could say, or whatever. I've never done a lot of the things that people do pre-lift that get people hyped up, like ammonia capsules or other enhancements or whatever.
Just some whiskey.
Well, whiskey helps me get in that meditative state a little bit. It helps me kind of get in that state and shuts off like some of the secondary self-talk and things like that. So it's one of the most potent things that I've found for like really getting in that space. But my father was a Buddhist. He spent some time, like a year or more, in the Tibetan monasteries, and at a very young age, he taught me, meditative practices, and it's just gotten to a point that I can kind of cue that weird fight or flight type situation. It's very strange because I can now consciously cue it through a lot of practice. About 6-7 years ago is when I finally became capable of like cueing it on demand. The daily challenges, it's really hard just because it burns every day. You're dropping adrenal, like you can feel it happen. Like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, your scalp tightens, everything's standing on end. And like, it's just this intense, really intense experience.
Pulling off previous emotions or just blocking everything out? How does it work?
It depends. I've used that word way too many times, but sometimes it's clearing. Sometimes it's pulling off of past experiences. And a lot of it is just like imagining like, who I am, like, that I'm powerful, that I am powerful enough to do that. It's just it kind of shifts over time. Like if I spend too much with one, I kind of have to shift a little bit to others, reminding myself of what I've been through in my life and that I've pulled through that, and I'm strong enough, to walk through that fire, and that this is, just like, this is nothing to me. And I don't know, it just like that trigger switches, and then it's on. Like once that intensity hits, like it's very, very powerful. And so that's what the self-talk is. It doesn't really matter what I say, because that changes a little bit with time. But it's just triggering that fight or flight state, that hormonal release, that change in the brain, and just shutting everything down. And it's just that instant right now. And it's crazy, because I can go from like, I've been in like barely able to lift 800 pounds, and then cue that, it's a very short period of time. So put 900 pounds on, cue that, and be able to hit 900 pounds for a triple. Like that's how powerful it is. So it's crazy. Like, and that's actually what makes some of my warm-ups are really hard right now, because I can't, if I'm doing 3 or 4 sets, so this isn't a top set, like I can't use it on a warm-up. So I hit 800 pounds, 900 pounds. Those are freaking hard. I just hit them for singles. I'm like, oh, that freaking sucks. Today's going to suck. And then I get in the state, and it's just like, I'll unrack 950, and I'll be like, nothing. Feels like nothing. I'm going to fucking kill this. And I'll hit it for a double and be like, I could have tripled that. No problem. Like, it's just like, just nuts. But the hardest ones are like that last warm-up with 900 pounds. It's just like, I
think a lot of what you're talking about,
I walk up to the bar completely relaxed, chilled, and when I walk up for the heavier weight, that is not the state I'm in. So
I think a lot of what you're talking about is the fact that, like, we have the ability to be reasonable and rational, and so you're like, oh, wow, there's a lot of weight on there. Like, this could hurt me. Like, those are the weird, stupid things that you think of. Oh, no, you shouldn't. But then you can combat that with what you're talking about.
Exactly,
using that as a trigger and just stuffing all that self-doubt to the side for a little bit.
Yep, because you walk up to the bar and you start thinking about, as I go down, is my freaking hamstring gonna, like, I've had this stuff happen. I know what it's like. I'm gonna get a tear in an adductor. I know your big squat. Like, you don't want to be thinking about that when you're going down with a weight, because it's gonna be in your head and you're gonna suck. Like, you gotta shut all that down and be 100% confident in yourself, or just not care. And that's the state that you've got to be in to do that, because it's not training anymore. It's at a very intense high level.
On those warm-ups, do you find yourself thinking a little bit more?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
God.
I hate thinking.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, there's like 9 plates on there. That seems like a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, all right, fuck it. I guess I'll give it another shot.
To do something like what you're talking about here, I mean, you talked about, your dad was a Buddhist. You learned a lot of that stuff from him. But how can somebody, I guess, get on the path to being able to control themselves in that way or elicit that type of response?
I think it is just, well, let me walk through it again and maybe use some different verbiage and see if that helps.
Okay.
And it's just like Mark was saying too, is like, you've got to clear that secondary stuff. And so it comes down to having the confidence in yourself in that moment. So this is, we don't have the Kabuki squat face on my shirt, but like the basis behind the Kabuki squat face, which is you got to get your game day face on. Okay. And this is a big struggle I have with people, like particularly on some of the Instagram and Facebook, that I'm a warrior, I'm battling the weights, I'm just like, in the grind all the time. Like no, dude, there's actual real warriors out there, and they go do battle, and there's paramedics, and like there's all sorts of stuff. But you have to take that instant, in that micro instant, and become that person, become that warrior that's super confident, become another version of yourself, right? In that period of time. But please get back to reality afterwards, okay? You're not changing the world by squatting some weights, okay?
Yeah.
So, that's my hate, is people that like have that mentality all the time, and they're like, no, you're just lifting weights, and it's a choice. Nobody forced you to diet. Nobody forced you to do a competition. You're not at some epic battle or whatever, but in that moment, you need to be. So that's putting your game day face on. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So, and where the Kabuki squat face kind of come through. So think about this in history. This is something that, look back, nearly every culture has some variation of this when it comes to going to battle, defending your tribe, your community, whatever it is, right? So because everybody that does it is just members of the community. Their fathers, their brothers, their whatever it is. You're a good person, but then you go out and kill people to defend your families, your friends, and all this stuff. But look at what happens when they do that. Well, they do it in protective, but they put on face paint, they put on masks, they have a ritual dance, they have all these sorts of things, because that person is now transforming into somebody else that's going to go do things that they would never normally do. That's your game day face, is like doing that, but just in the instance, like you still got to come back, live your life, and be a person, and but it's interesting that is a phenomenon, basically in every culture. Think about it, like that is a ritualistic thing that has been done for millennia. Like that's how we get through those times, to do things that we wouldn't normally do, to protect the our loved ones, our communities, families, and things like that. So it's throughout. So anyway, that's a little bit of off the side there, but that gets back to that same thing. And so we see that with, even in sports, people kind of do that. Hey, Blaine Sumner does that with his but
the chalk, right?
Is the chalk same thing? Like whatever's getting him in that state, that game day, and you go talk to Blaine any other time, and he's just a great guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you want to mess with him when he's got the chalk on his face and he's walking up to the squat bar. It's probably a bad time. You might come out missing an arm. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book, The Eagle and the Dragon. Is this a recipe book? What is this?
Yeah, it's a recipe for a better life. So The Eagle and the Dragon.
I think one of the first times you talked about some of your, I know what the book's about, I was just teasing you, but like one of the first times you really opened up about your upbringing and your life was on our Super Training Gym YouTube channel.
Yep.
And you and I sat and or stood and talked at the reverse hyper for probably like, I don't know, 2.5 hours or something like that about your upbringing. I just found it so fascinating.
Yeah, and there's a lot that was left out of that conversation yet still. And so I wrote the book. I spent about a year working on this project because that's my goal, is to help people live better through strength. That's the mission, the drive behind Kabuki and the companies that I've been part of. but it's all about the physical nature of it. And that's just one aspect. Okay. So almost 100 5-star reviews. Looking good. Looking good.
Yeah, great.
So, more importantly is probably the mental, the emotional, or maybe even spiritual side of strength. So, and I haven't been able to address that through the medium of my businesses. They're very much the physical side of it. So this has been like something I've wanted to do for a really long time. And when I've shared my story, it's had a really big impact on people in helping them understand, see how far the needle can be moved. And so this book is not really, it's an autobiography, but that's not really, doesn't do it justice. So I use the stories to articulate the philosophies and approach, and actually to get you to dive deeper and really understand like what your values are in life. Walk you through the process of goal setting based on actually having those values established and really creating and defining the life that you want. So it's really a self-help book. One of the categories, number one in like 5 different categories. One of those is self-help and one is philosophy. And so, yeah, it's got some crazy stories that'll draw you in. There's stuff with, well, lots of homelessness and crazy stories around that, drug running, murders, human trafficking, all sorts of shit. So it's a wild ride, but it's not like, oh, woe is me, look at how much, or look at, how great I am from what I've done. It's stories that articulate messages, and it's very specific in that regard. And the last quarter of the book is really pulling all that together in a really succinct manner that you can like put this stuff to place in life. And actually, if anybody wants to know more, just click on the reviews and start reading through, and you'll see that it's like had a very profound impact on a number of people. And the emails and messages I've got is just huge, because some of the stuff that people have shared has been pretty big, but what it's helped them with in their life and be able to process things and be able to move forward and take action, because that's what I wanted. I didn't want to, like, here's a book, but something that helps empower people. And, some of the central themes is like around like thinking about the stresses and challenges in life, the way that we do the gym. So we grow stronger through these things. So they're not necessarily a bad thing. They're opportunities for you to challenge you, to express yourself, and to be able to develop and build strength off of that. And actually, I challenge you that if you found comfort in life and you feel just like incredibly happy with where you are and everything's just easy, to get out of that, to actually go find things that scare you and take those on. That's the signal that it's the right thing. Like, think about, for you, like, think about when you met Andy, right? And you probably were like, God, I really want to like pursue a relationship with her, but you're probably still like a little scared of, like, it's a mixture of like fear and excitement and all this, like, because it's going to change your life. Yeah. And those are the things that we need to find. You talked earlier about, not telling, the leaders in your business, like what they have to do, but, they get to make decisions and create and do this. Like, and that's where the beauty is. And that's where they can try to find those things themselves and the work that they do, to be able to challenge people, your employees, to like do more, be better, like, and do things that maybe scare them. And that's okay. That's what we want. Like that's the path to growth. That's the path to life. Because what happens when we don't do it? What happens when we don't go to the gym? The process of atrophy starts happening. The process leading towards death. Okay? Comfort is not something to be, that is our end goal. Okay? If we find this and we just like, hang out and chill, you're going to get soft, just like you're going to get soft if you don't go to the gym. You're going to get soft mentally. You're going to get soft emotionally. Shit's going to happen in your life, and you're not going to know how to deal with it. You're not going to be prepared to deal with it. So anyway, it goes into a lot of other subjects, but that's, people miss that with life a lot of times, and they're trying to find like, I got this job that I can just cruise, and then on the weekend I can chill with my buddies and have some beers and watch, like that's my life. Yeah, we all want to. We need downtime. You need to have that stuff in your life. Just like if you train 7 days a week, 5 hours a day, guess what? You're going to quit growing. You're going to be a hurting mess.
Yeah.
So it's the same process. You need that stuff in your life, but that shouldn't be the entirety. You need those things that scare you and drive you.
It must have been hard to write.
It was.
Because some of it's kind of gut wrench, or not kind of gut wrench.
It was. It really brought up, stirred a lot of emotions, and was just really challenging, especially like thinking through, my kids are all at all different ages through, 2 to 7 and 10 right now, or 7 and 11 right now. And, thinking about them, like when I was growing up, I didn't think about it. Like it was just life, but like thinking about my kids being in those situations, just, man, that just like hit something different. Like I'm like, wow, okay, that really was messed up. Like those situations that I was in, and I didn't really see that. And then, walking through that and really dealing with some of the emotions, and then also realizing some of the bigger changes in my life were, even more recently, were really all linked together as well when I started dealing with that. So, when I started Kabuki, it was to gain control of a lot of my life and like work towards my vision, and involved making some changes in my personal life as well. And I ended up working through a divorce during that time. So it's pretty significant changes, but I didn't realize that was also the time I basically retired from powerlifting. And I'm like, oh, well, of course that makes sense. Like I was trying to create my own environment and be able to execute and realize my vision. And I didn't want to be controlled by another set of rules or other, I'm like, it was allowed me to express myself more fully and the way that I wanted to, in the physical nature. And I'm like, oh, of course I quit that at the same time. I didn't realize that at the time that was all tied, because I basically was throwing everything that I did up in the air in my life and redefining it. So,
I've heard a bit about like when you were younger from the interview you had with Mark in the past, and you mentioned right now how like people should continue to seek out discomfort. Don't get too comfortable. Don't get complacent. But with what you've gone through, it's surprising that like you're not seeking just pure comfort. So what do you think what is that thing that's making you continue to seek out those type of challenges?
I think it's the scope of the life that I've had in realizing the real value in some of those experiences and what they taught me. So in the book, I walk through every chapter. It starts out a little intro story, and then it tells basically kind of the lesson and the things that I learned during those periods of time. And the scope of my life is very vast. I've seen a lot. So it's not worse than anybody, everybody's got their stories. There's bad things that have happened to lots of people. So mine is definitely not to say, oh, I've had the worst, but I've had a very big scope of going from, homeless, foraging for food, killing animals and whatnot in the woods with no shelter growing up, to, being a corporate executive, doing company turnarounds, and then walking away from that to become, a serial entrepreneur. And there's just a lot that I've seen in the scope of that. And those experiences have really helped solidify what I feel are important qualities in my life. And I think that a number of them can be useful for other people. I'm not saying that necessarily seeking, like some people, maybe that's what they need. Maybe that's what they want. I'm okay with that. But the people that want to continue to grow personally are the ones that need to seek that challenge, because you're not going to do that without it. I've found in my work experience that has been one of the best ways of actually creating engagement with people, not just in their job, but actually seeing it had a profound impact in their entire life. When I walk in with somebody that's just like, I've been doing the same thing for 20 years, come in, punch the clock, whatever. They're just rolling through life. And I'm like, hey, I see a lot in you. And I've got some big project next year I want you to work on. This is what I want. I can't do that. You're not prepared for it yet, but I believe you can do it. I'd like you to get out and get some courses in this and this and this. And, you know, like really push them, like, I believe in you. I can do this. And then this thing scares them. But a couple years in, they've changed all parts of their life. They're fully engaged. They're more engaged with their family. They're more, you know, like, you have to be engaged in your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't have something that's creating some challenge, something that you're trying to drive, something that scares you a little, like, you're going to settle into that, and you're going to settle into it in all portions of your life. That's what I find. So it's been huge. Next thing you know, they're going back to school to, you know, get their bachelor's degree in business that they'd always wanted and never got. And, you know, like, they've taken on a fitness goal and they've dropped 20 pounds in weight. And it's like, these aren't the things that I asked them to do. And they're killing it, of course, on this major project that you wanted, you know. So I've seen this stuff in place personally in myself and others through the course of my life. And and obviously there's a lot more than that I cover in there. But the strength aspect is definitely a good topic for the for the show. So yeah.
When you were a kid, did you ever, because of your upbringing, because of being homeless and squatting at different houses and stuff like that, did you I don't know, did you think that you weren't capable of certain things, and then something happened in your life somewhere along the lines where you maybe recognized that you are good enough to do certain things, or was it like that for you?
Yeah. So I definitely, I lacked a lot of social confidence growing up because I was continually moving. Like, I wore clothes that were falling apart and kids made fun of me. And like, I went years here and there with no friends. I had my friends die on me. I had, it was so the social part of it, like going into high school and stuff like that, I was like, I never saw myself being a speaker, a leader, anything like that, in any regards. I viewed myself as the quiet introvert, and which there's nothing wrong with that. And but I realized as I progressed my career that I did possess those qualities once I really realized like what they were and how you could bring it about in different manners. So like from the leadership aspect, I always viewed like that leader as being this like super motivational, up in front of everybody, rah, rah, rah type person, right? And what I found is I ended up being in leadership positions quite a bit. And I'm like, why me? I was leadership of the captain of the wrestling team. And then I was whatever, bunch of different things. And then same thing, I got elected president of the engineering society. And then I went into jobs in management. And I'm like, I'm really good at this. I'm like, why? I don't understand, because I'm just this quiet kid, right? And then I realized the value of authenticity. And I'm like, oh, that's why people connect. Like, I'm real. Like, who you see, who you talk to, it's real. I'm not up there rah, 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 but we talked about having difficult conversations with people. And when people know, it's not like a cursory, hey, you're doing a great job, thumbs up. That doesn't mean jack shit to somebody. But when you take the time and you're like, Mark, I really appreciate, it was a couple years ago, we were driving in your car. I got this phone call, and you looked at me and you said, man, you need to do something different with your life. It's time. That was huge for me, and I want to thank you. You know that I'm real when I say that. And if I say, hey, you're not performing the way that you want to, but I believe in you, I want you to be successful, they know that that's real. And you're probably going to have a good return on that. So authenticity, like being the real you, caring for people, can be huge. And so next thing you know, it changed my my view of what a leader was. And I realized, oh, this is why I'm good. Like, I just need to continue to do this. You know, is developing visions for a company and then like getting people engaged with it. You know, being able to have that conversation and say, Mark, this is where we're going. And you're a part of this. Like, this is what you need to do. This is how you fit in with this. We need your help on doing this. Like, people are going to buy into that versus being up in front of a room and going, look at this, it's awesome, let's all go there, you know, and whatever motivational speech. I still suck at it. You know, people don't buy into that. Yeah. And then I started doing more public speaking though. And I realized, wow, I'm actually pretty decent with a crowd too. So I just didn't have those experiences when I was younger. Like, I had a lot of anxiety and fear of like people making fun of me, people like, cause that's the environment I grew up in. Like, I was the poor kid that wasn't bathed properly and was wearing clothes and shoes with my toes sticking out the side of them. You know, like I was the brunt of jokes and sat alone on the playground. And now I'm like, oh, I'm an effective leader in the strength training community in the world. Like, and I can walk into an environment, stand in front of a room of hundreds of professionals, more educated than me on topics, and I can sit up there and lecture. I can walk into a physical therapy or chiro school and lecture, and comfortably be there in my own skin and know that I have value to add and not stumble over myself. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big shift.
Yeah, it's huge. What gave you the confidence first? Maybe some of your education, or was it physical? Was it lifting?
Good question. Combination of both, probably. I've always been pretty smart on a number of topics, and so my comfort level with my ability and knowledge has always been fairly strong on things I'm educated on. And strength is...
I'm sure like wrestling probably gave you quite a bit of confidence.
Sports as a whole and training was huge for my self-confidence, and probably really helped facilitate a lot of that shift as I went through. So I started lifting in junior high, and it was the same thing. I'm the nerdy kid, and I'm like, I should be big. Like, that'll make me less nerdy, right? and then actually funny, my wife was joking with me about high school nicknames last night. We were texting back and forth. I'm like, actually, my high school nickname was Duff the Buff. I'm like, I guess that's not a bad nickname, honestly, for high school.
It's not a bad nickname at all.
So, by the time I out of high school, I wasn't like, definitely nobody was making fun of me. I was like the strongest guy in the school. Like, you don't do that. Sports and lifting was a huge foundation overall for my self-esteem early on. Yeah. And I'm not sure, what role that plays in like my current situation, but that was a very transitional time for me through high school, coming out of, because I had a regular place to live. We had a washing machine, things like that. So it was more stable. I was more less pathetic looking at that time, and then the confidence that came through with sports, because I was fairly successful in most everything that I did.
I think it's huge just to like have an identity. Like, people want to. That's the way people want to view each other. They want to say, "Oh, this, like if oh, there's Chris, and what does he do?" Like, if we're talking as friends in school. It's like, well, I don't know. I just see him on the playground. He's kind of always sitting by himself. But as soon as you're the wrestler, even if everybody knows how hard it is just to participate in wrestling. Like, wrestling is difficult. So even if you're not the best guy in the team, they're still going to be like, oh, I know him. Yeah, he's on the wrestling team. Mm-hmm. And then it just, it brings about a little bit more positivity, because you're like, oh yeah, he does that with us, or he kicks our ass. Like, then it gives you even more, that makes you more valid. It shouldn't change anything, really.
It shouldn't, but it does. Like, that was definitely a transitional time in my life into coming into confidence. And then the second piece of that was like moving off to college, and no one knew me. Nobody, like, I always had this feeling in high school, like everybody knew, oh, that was the kid that lived down by the river. Honestly, most people had no clue. I found out later, like, but I always had that in the back of my head, like, and because literally I lived in a trailer down by the river, It's
Like
the
Chris
old
Farley.
Chris Farley, but
And you're living in a van down by the river.
so, so I always felt that there was these lasting, impressions from me, but I built my confidence that I didn't really care that much anymore. Like, because I was, I was valedictorian. I was, state level wrestler. I was, I was involved in a lot of stuff. Like I was pretty confident in myself at that point in time, but it really took another level when I moved to go to college and nobody knew who I was, and everybody else was kind of in the same environment. They've been pulled out, like nothing from your and I was like, oh, I'm just like everybody else. Like that was really additive to me at that time.
I'm guessing more so additive in a positive sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. All right. Now at this point, how do you handle your, I guess, continued education in terms of strength? Because you know all these different professionals, so everyone's you have access to everybody. But I mean, you're not necessarily going back to school. How are you continuing to move the needle forward?
Yeah. So right now, it works on the education front, is just really interacting with a lot of those people because they're very much seeking out new knowledge themselves all the time, reading new research, passing it along. My team does the same thing. So we actually have each of our person on our coaching staff specialize in different areas. So, we've got somebody hired that focuses on diet and nutrition. Somebody else focuses on research on myofascial release techniques and other stuff. So as a whole, like we're really trying to expand our company knowledge, but not relying on every person to be an expert and everywhere else. So we all lean on each other and then share internally with that. And then having the resource to reach out to these other people outside of that are kind of doing the same thing, a little bit in a different environment. So like I'll travel and spend time with, some of these professionals. A lot of them are on our advisory board for our company now. And so that's how I keep them looped in. But, I'll travel and spend time. Like I was just down in LA last month, learned a whole bunch about the vagus nerve and its impact on throughout the body. And just like continuing to just reach, because these people, like, a lot of it is either reading research or getting shared research, because there's not a lot of books or other stuff that I'm reading anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really learning through other people, the experts in each of those fields, and seeing what applies, how is it useful, how does it interact with these other areas, and okay, is that a useful piece of our model that we're going to extrapolate on, or just a bit of knowledge that we're going to just have in the back of our head. So it's really that. One is internally, creating those experts in the field that we can rely on to enhance our companies, and then that way we can deal with a lot more, and then using that same resource externally. And a lot of it is research-based and then testing application, because there's, again, a lot of it's not really in like truly what we do as lifters, right?
Yeah.
So that's the interesting side. There's a lot of research that's done for lifters on like impacts on, set rep schemes, diet, dietary approaches, frequency, all sorts of variables like that. But a lot of those other areas are not. So.
All right.
What you got, Andrew?
Let's see. I do have some questions from people, but I wanted to take a super quick second to thank Perfect Keto for sponsoring this episode. We're trying actually something different with them. We're doing $10 off any order 40 or more, but if you're ready to go in deep, you can get 25 off of 100. For $25 off, it's Power Project Bundle, and then for the $10 off, it's Power Project 10. That's at perfectketo.com/Power Project. You'll see our survival kit. It's pretty awesome as far as like getting through fast and whatnot. But my question was, that damn trap bar is amazing, dude. where did the
Yeah, I love
idea,
that thing.
dude? Where did the idea come from to make such an incredible trap bar? Because you think a trap bar is like, what the hell can you really do? It's a hexagon. It's strong enough to hold weight. You step in it, you lift, and then you come out with an incredible bar.
So a few years back, so I was doing another tour of all the MLB teams that we work with, and I'm always asking them like, "What are your struggle points?" You know, and just observing as well. And I'm sitting there in the weight room as they're working with all these players who literally I have no idea who they are. So, which is my business partner Rudy is an MLB fan as much as you can get. Our closest relationship was with the Dodgers, and that's been his like who he's loved since. Well, he's old since the 1920s, we'll say.
Yeah.
And so he just loves the we can just drop in there anytime. But just watching what they're doing, and I'm like, man, all these coaches are sitting there having to bend over and pick up the bar, and so that they can load plates for the players in between every advancement, right? So there's a lot of other things too. Like one, they all use bumper plates. The sleeves are too short. Okay, they're stepping over it. Oh wait, how are these being used? Oh, they're trying to use them because it's actually for athletic populations. They're trying to do a lot of Bulgarians and stuff like that. They're not fitting. They're running into the bar. So I'm just like watching this stuff. I'm like, man, okay, there's a big opportunity here. There was some open trap bars I'd go see, but they would want to rotate because they weren't balanced, And I'm like, and then I'm like, so I started asking. I'm like, hey, what do you want to see for grip? And I'd start getting different answers because they're, different teams want different things. Then I drop into the NFL teams, and they're like, God, we can't get our players into these damn things. Can you make like a super wide one, like, that'll fit? And,
Yeah.
Which is, so we have a newer version now, which actually has adjustable width as well.
Wow.
So you can go really narrow. Talking to Kelly Starrett, he's like, I need something for my teens. So I don't come up with this stuff. You see, I was given the answers by everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? So our designer, so I've got an engineer that used to work for me in the automotive space. So I sit down with him, I'm like, here's the constraints. Like, this is what we need to come up with. Like, and the loading mechanism, the self-loading, that was definitely mine. I had to go back and forth with him several times because I'm trying to draw it. I'm an engineer, but my designs are on, with napkins or whatever. I'm really horrible at sketching things out, but I'm trying to sketch it out. So we went back and forth for a couple weeks. I'm like, no, it's like this. And finally he got it. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, yes, it's super simple. There's just nothing to it. Just pop it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was the design constraints. One, it needs to be for athletic populations. And so we need to have it open. We've got to have it balanced. And there's another thing that came into balance that people don't understand. I've got a great video on our Cadillac bar, and it's called Playground Physics. And I talk about what happens when the load is below or above the wrist. So I know you know the normal Swiss bars, right? They always want you come out of the rack and immediately wants to break and crush your face, and you're always unstable. Okay? That's because it's a teeter-totter. It's literally a teeter-totter. Okay? And a teeter-totter means that you can't ever find balance. You have this infinitely perfect balance point. And by infinitely perfect means you can never actually find it. So that's why you walk into a playground, teeter-totter's always sitting on one side. Because the point that it rotates about, the center of mass and center of rotation are on the same point. So it'll always be unstable. Well, everybody, you notice on trap bars, everybody always ends up using the high handle position because it naturally feels really good. If you grab the low handle position, it always wants to dive forward, moving your wrist. You can't find center. So we have the only trap bar that our low handle position is slightly offset. So even our low handle position feels more like a high handle position because it's like a swing. Which is the same thing with the Cadillac bar. It rotates about 1 point high up, but the center of mass is below it. So where does a balance point find? Always returns to center. And that's why the Cadillac bar, we take out that induced instability in the wrist. Well, we have the same thing in trap bars. Nobody's ever realized it before. So ours is offset by like 3/8 of an inch, just enough. But you put it in your hands and you can feel the difference. So especially if you're doing single leg work, lunges, Bulgarians, carries, any of this stuff, if you grab that handle that's on center, it's always going to want to dip forward on you immediately as you pick it up or you try to walk. So you're always going to be fighting this. So
that's incredible.
So there's a lot of little things like that in there.
And then as far as that,
and then the rest of it is just we wanted it open, we wanted it balanced, we wanted to eliminate people having to get in bad position. You're sitting there, you're doing deadlifts, you're working up. You don't have a deadlift jack that'll work on the damn thing. So you're working on maintaining good position, good spinal position, good bracing, doing all this stuff. And then in between every set, you're fatiguing yourself, getting in horrible freaking position to load plates in between every one. So you're compromising your training, or you got somebody else doing it for you, and they don't want to do it. So, so they're going to be the one I'm going to sell it to, because they don't want to do it anymore.
Dude, I love that freaking bar. So like my back is always kind of bothering me. So that like I can deadlift fine, but then loading and unloading, it jacks me up.
Exactly, because you can't do it in a good position.
Yeah, and then so I'm lifting with Mark and Chris, and they're both lifting 3 times as much as I do. But with that bar, it's like, yeah, dude, let's go. It's so simple.
And then I wanted to have different size grips because, a strongman's going to want to work on grip. So they're going to have a 2-inch. They're going to have a 2-inch rotating. Just to have it interchangeable to work because people do different things.
That fat grip's a motherfucker.
It is.
It's so good, though.
And then, so it was just like opening up the versatility of, because what I found is people are using trap bars for a lot more than just deadlifting. And so let's build that in there and make it the right length, get the right balance, build in these other unique features that people hadn't thought of, like the self-unracking or the self-racking, the instability in that low handle position, which again, nobody else has caught on to. Like these bars have been around forever. Nobody can figure this out. Same thing with the Swiss bars. They suck. I'm sorry, you know it. Like they're not great to bench with. So you do those little minor changes on where the load sits and handle positions and all this stuff, and all of a sudden it feels incredibly different. We get an incredibly different training impact from it. So what I wanted to have was the best deadlift type bar in the world. Not a competition deadlift bar, okay? Neutral grip deadlift bar. The best bench press bar specific in the world. It's the Cadillac bar. The best squat bar in the world, the Transformer bar. And the best all-around training, general purpose training bar, the Duffalo bar. And that's what we have.
That Cadillac bar is probably the scariest thing I've ever benched with. I'm like, I'm so weak, I'm shaky, and then Mark goes and he's like, "Ooh, this is a little squirrely." It's that's incredible.
What's the main benefit of the Cadillac bar? I honestly haven't used it just yet.
Okay,
you'll love it. It's good for your wrist.
Yeah.
Like so you personally, because I know you've mentioned that in the past that your wrist.
Baby ass wrist.
Yeah. The one thing you got to be careful because everybody's trained with the Swiss bar to choke up on one side, because it's gonna try to rotate in your wrist. So you actually have to grab ours in the center.
Yeah.
So make sure you grab in the center of the grip. But the others, to take out that where it's trying to do this, you come out of the rack, it's trying to break your face, you come down and touch your chest and it rotates again. So it's getting that instability out, and then getting the handle position. So every handle position is slightly different, a little bit more internal or external rotational bias based on how far out it is. Because as we go further out, the change in the shoulder is different as well.
Yeah.
So everybody always has these fixed ones. Well, it should be slightly different every one, but leaving a little bit left that you can cue some external rotation. So not be completely in line with the shoulder, but just enough that you can still cue that external rotation. So we get the shoulder in just a really great position that you basically can't get out of position.
Yeah.
And so with all that stability, movement, like now, if you take that bar down, you'll get that extra range of motion without like feeling the stress in your shoulder. So like I took this, the prototype. This is a great thing about MLB is every head strength coach has bad shoulders, right? So I go into I know this already, so I walk into every weight room, we show the other stuff, and they're like, what about this one? And I'm like, who here has bad shoulders? Head strength coach raises their hand. They're the buyer. And I'm like, oh, okay. Do you want to do some benching? No, I can't bench. Haven't for 5 years. And he's like, oh, this issue, that issue. I'm like, oh, just try it. Like, oh, that feels good. I haven't been able to take a bar to my chest for years, you know. I'm like, wow, I can actually get all the way down. Put some plates on. No pain. Well, this feels good.
Yeah.
Put 2 plates on. They're sitting there doing reps. This happens like over and over again, like at every team I go to. Then they're like, oh my God. Their staff is sitting there jaws hanging because they're like, they're going 3 inches deeper than normal with 2 plates for reps. And they haven't been able to bench with a bar for years. All because we're controlling that shoulder position.
Yeah.
And then the other is, from athletic perspective, same thing with the Duffalo bar. Like, we need to be developing power behind the shoulder. If you're starting out here in front, it may work for bench press, you know, for powerlifting. But this is too late to the game in athletic world. You need to be starting power generation back here. So it develops, and then you're going to get, well, even for powerlifting, you're going to get more development with that extra range of motion as well. So we've had a number of people use that and see, over a training cycle, see a huge spike in a bench press that hasn't moved anywhere in a long time.
Wow.
So normally you can't get into that extra range. Now still, if you've got an internal rotational deficit where you can't get in there, it's not going to help you. So like for Mark, it may be a struggle because he struggles a little bit with internal rotation. So he might still have to put a board or something on there because he can go down, but he's going to reach a point where he decentrates that shoulder, driving it forward in the capsule, okay, and be in bad position. So it's not going to fix that. But for most people with shoulder problems or shoulder pain while pressing, it's going to disappear while under the bar.
Got any new products you're really fired up about that you can share with us?
None that I can share. So I'll just, yeah, sorry.
Any plans on making like racks and stuff like that? I don't believe you make anything like that yet, right?
We will be, but it's a long ways out. It's going to be a lot different than anything that's currently on the market. So basically, slowly, we're working on reinventing the gym. So right now we're doing it in the barbells, but everything is built around these concepts. Getting the joints in the right position, being able to accommodate for variability in a lifter's height, length, levers, and then variability for dealing with a person's mobility restrictions, things like that. So to be able to rapidly accommodate and basically get people in the right position to train. I love people like some famous NBA player will post up a squat video and everybody's like, ha ha, he squats like shit. Oh, that's only a half rep. I'm like, you realize he's 7'6". Like, he can either do a half squat with a back squat bar, or he can compromise all his position and risk injury and not develop correctly by trying to go break this randomly parallel spot, right? Because he's not built to back with a load in this very specific spot. There's nothing about our bodies that said we're supposed to have a barbell on our back right here. And people with different torso and femur links and stuff like that, they can't do the same thing that necessarily everybody else can.
Yeah.
But like with a transformer bar, we can change that. We can actually get something so that anybody can go in there. Oh, what's the video here?
LeBron squat.
Yeah.
That's the most famous one.
Yeah. So we can actually fix that with a transformer bar. Like, I wouldn't have to do a thing. This MLB loves this because they get all these players in from the Dominican Republic, and they're very skilled athletes, but they have zero experience in the gym. They have no training age at all, right? And so now you've got this huge group of athletes that all you need to do is get stronger and more resilient in the weight room, and they're going to excel. But you're starting from ground zero with squatting. Well, we can put a transformer bar on their back, get the right adjustment, and all of a sudden they're all squatting perfectly with no coaching.
Wow.
Like, yeah, that's a pretty freaking great thing. So anyway, we haven't got into the racking, the other stuff, but everything is being built around those principles, getting things in the right positions. So it's all around improving biomechanics and accommodating for variability in mobility, levers, height, all those sorts of things, so that we can actually effectively train everybody. And this is where training is going, not powerlifting training, but general population training, athletic training, even elderly rehabilitation, all this stuff. And it may not be there yet, but it's going to be. And if it's not, I'm going to make it happen.
What else you got coming up? You got anything coming up soon? Speaking engagements or anything like that?
I'm trying to keep everything a little limited right now. The next 3 months we're prepping on I'm prepping for this big squat.
And when's the
So
squat?
that is March 18th or 19th, whatever the Thursday is that week.
You're
That'll
gonna
be.
like stream it live or something?
I'm sure it will be. I don't know how to do that stuff, but somebody on my team does. That will be done in San Diego at the URSA show. So that'll be which is the largest equipment show in the world.
Wow.
We will be unveiling some new products there for anybody that wants to attend. But I can't really speak to them just yet. But obviously everything is in line with what I just spoke about. And so it'll be done at that event. In the course of this, we're actually filming a documentary around what's happening from training, rehabilitation, and a mixture of the mental side of it, the philosophy, all that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't expect that comes out. It'll be a feature-length documentary, but I'm not expecting that to be done till the end of this year or early next year. So that's it. My wife has a massive project that I can't talk about that'll be happening over the same period of time. So our plates are very, very full. And then the rest of the year, I haven't quite thought about yet, except going to finish the war rig. I'm going to start working on that again. You were talking about the farm boy strong, like being in those different, like, when I'm in the middle of this, like, I can't go work on the rig.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get under there and be up here and doing, like, those just don't go together. So as much as I want to finish it, that's sitting to the side. I'll be speaking at Swiss again, Society for Weightlifting Injury Prevention in Sports, up in Toronto this fall, which is a really big gig that I enjoy going to. And we've got seminars every month all year long. Go to kabuki.education. You'll find those. We will be doing at least one in the UK and possibly another one overseas this year, but they haven't made it on the schedule yet. But most every other one is there. So we've got stuff going on all year long for education and certification. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Can find me on I've got this great program. Well, I don't. Audible does. So I'm going to talk about that for just a second, and then because it's really cool. Where if you sign up for Audible account, you can get my book for free and another book for free. So there's a link to that on my personal website, which is ChristopherDuffin.com, and a link to the companies that I'm involved with: Kabuki Strength, Build Fast Formula, and Barefoot Athletics. That is something that's. Oh, I've got my shoes are off.
Shoes with you, right?
Yeah, they're on the floor. I'll grab them in a second. But there are links to all that on there. So ChristopherDuffin.com. My Instagram and LinkedIn are where I'm most active socially. Facebook, I gave up on a while ago. But mad_scientist_Duffin on Instagram. But you can just type in Chris Duffin on anything, and I'm sure I'll pop up. So it's not too complicated. You guys can figure that out.
Yeah, link was just added to the description of this video too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mentioned the coaching account on IG. Definitely check that out. I mean, we have massive content that we're dropping daily on there. That's really, really cool stuff. Kabuki_virtual coaching. We should have renamed it to education or something to make a little bit more sense. But that's our free education platform. Yeah, that's I think that covers all of it. So yeah, Barefoot Athletics. So anybody that knows you watch my videos, I train barefoot. I've been barefoot for like 5 years. And it's just a strength training. It's an opportunity to work the feet and allow them to develop stronger. If you look at my foot, there's massive muscles on there, actually. They're jacked. I got jacked fucking feet.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Wow.
jack feet.
Wow.
It make you stable and strong, my friend.
Yeah.
So, it's the point we start off of. So big proponent of, like, I produce a lot of education around proper foot mechanics and the impact that has. You can wear shoes. I got nothing against shoes. Shoes are great, actually, because they protect you against cuts, cold, environment, piss on the floor, things like that. Oh shit! I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Especially in here.
so for that, we've launched Barefoot Athletics. That's with a BEAR, kind of a take on my growing up in the wilderness. I might have been chased by bears a few times too. But yeah, these are prototypes. We're starting to ship in well, right after Chinese New Year, so we'll probably be in stock and
Man,
shipping.
are they supposed to smell that bad?
No, that's just my feet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just a minimalist shoe, wider than normal because when you're under load, the front of the foot has an opportunity to splay more than others. So you really need this wide, like people like Chuck Taylors are great or this or that. They're not wide enough to really allow this splay, the natural splay of the foot. But we also have to control for shear forces. So there's some stuff with stitching and stretch the specific way the hide stretches one way or the other so that we can create stability so that the foot doesn't roll outside of the shoe. But for the most part, minimalist shoe that's aesthetically not marketed to runners and hippies, so the rest of us can actually wear it. All the other barefoot style shoes out there are very Portland-esque in looks. So trying to create something that you could actually, how shall we say, still get laid when you're wearing. So because like there's a bunch of stuff out there like Vibrams and others, and I'm like, yeah, if you plan on not having sex with your partner, you can wear those. They are functional, but there is some other things. Anyway.
Leaving the shoes on is usually for the ladies, isn't it? Anyway.
So
at least in some of the documentaries I've seen.
Documentaries.
I haven't heard that.
That's
in
what
a
we
while.
call them here.
Yeah.
documentaries.
The one with
Yep.
the plumber was great.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
So
I thought we weren't doing that anymore.
We got off track really fast.
No Fap January's over.
Yeah.
It
So
just ended badly.
but anyway, pretty excited about that project. I think it's pretty cool and allows the foot to still be used correctly, to be able to strengthen, improve our proprioception with the ground, all this sort of stuff. So, anyway,
Cool.
anybody checks it out. There's links on. You can go to Barefoot Athletics or just find the link off my page, ChristopherDuffin.com.
Which is already in the description.
Awesome.
Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you all later.